of Lion Board of Trustees. It is Monday, March 7th, 2022. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. April, will you let the record show that we are all present? All right, we want to move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. I have no additions or deletions. Anyone?
I will move the approval of the agenda.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to move on to announcements and communications. And I just have one announcement. The flex route that I know Chris has been working on pretty good and keeping track of. That's coming down I-96. I had a letter asking for a variance that they can work in the evening hours and off Saturdays and Sundays. And I guess it really isn't an ask, they're telling me that's what they're going to do. So I just want to let everyone here know that when they start working, weekends and nights will be very busy on I-96. So that's just the one announcement I'd like to make. Anyone else?
I came across a grant, and I just wanted to see if anyone would be interested in, if we were to ask Leslie to look at this. There's a critical infrastructure grant from Oakland County for covering some engineering and design work for applications for clean water and drinking water revolving fund qualifying projects. So I didn't know if we could possibly look at using that for some of the stormwater improvements or something like that.
We have worked with the full-time officials, and we're going to apply for that grant.
Oh, excellent.
At the end of March.
Yep.
And that will go towards the Hudson Drain improvements as the people with that.
Perfect.
You good, Rob?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for that. It's good to know. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to move on to call to the public. You can stand up and talk about things that are non-agenda related. Anyone would like to stand up and talk? Okay, seeing none, we'll close call to the public and move on to reports. First report from Amy, DDA.
Hi, everyone.
Doing?
I included a document in your board packets this evening, but just to highlight a few of the items. I attended this last week the Michigan Downtown Association Spring Workshop. I got a lot of great information there. There were a couple programs that were presented from other communities that I think would cross over well into our area, so I'm going to be looking into implementation possibly this year when I meet with the DDA board. Also, I'll be meeting with some representatives from the City of South Lyon and the Kensington Valley Chamber of Commerce. We're going to be having a virtual meeting this week. We're going to be talking about the Love for Lyon campaign, and also meeting to discuss the possibility of working together, the three of us, in conjunction with some ribbon cutting campaigns, so that we're incorporating all three of our organizations each time instead of each doing different presentations for some of those businesses because our communities are so close together. The DDA board as a whole is starting to work on strategic planning for the fourth leg of the Ring Road. We're also hoping to begin the process of amending our TIF agreement with Oakland County in the next year or so. So we're doing some upfront legwork on that. And I'm happy to announce that the DDA has joined the Oakland County Main Street program and also the Main Street USA program. I'm going to be meeting with the Oakland County representatives this week to talk about some possible benefits for our organization that we can take advantage of. And then lastly, it's on the agenda for you tonight, but we're hoping to have a new DDA board member appointed tonight, Lisa Gezzi, who is in attendance now, but she won't be able to be here the full meeting, so I just wanted you to see that she was attending tonight. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Amy, any questions for Amy?
Would it,
Go
not
ahead.
really a question,
Go ahead.
but would it be appropriate if we shuffled the order around to cover Elisa's appointment while she's still here.
Well, we already approved the agenda, so can we do that,
I mean,
Carol?
can we just make a motion to
I
adjust
think
the
you're
order?
going to have to do a motion.
Yeah, let's
I
just-
think you're really past the agenda item, but,
I think we can get through this.
you know, I don't think there would be anything wrong if she wanted to step up at the podium at this point and just introduce herself to everybody.
Put you on the spot.
Nothing like put you on the spot.
Thank you. My name is Elisa Gezi. I am a resident of Lyon Township since 2005. I am a geriatric dentist. My husband's a pediatric dentist. Our office is in the city of South Lyon. I have been attending, I think, since November, observing the DDA meetings and a number of their strategic planning meetings as well. It's, again, as you all know, the biggest DDA in the state, and so there's just a lot of really exciting things going on, and would love to be a part of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Casey. Okay, we're going to move on to the fire. Chief?
Good evening. Our testing process for the captains continues on. It's set to come to deadline this Friday, so we'll evaluate the candidates, and if we need to extend it, we will. Regarding our firefighters and the hiring process, unfortunately, one of our new firefighters took a job elsewhere, and we are looking to replace his position. We do have somebody internally on our eligibility list and would like to fill that April 1st and bring him before you for the April 4th board meeting to be sworn in. And then finally, our work with Redstone Architects continues, and we meet with them on March 23rd to continue looking at response times and just evaluation of our fire service. And that was all I had.
Do you want, oh, go ahead. Somebody have a question? Do you want to brag about the new things in front of the fire station?
Oh, yeah, those little signs out front now. We have, the two marquees in front of both of our fire stations. So we have large plastic letters for sale if anybody is looking. So we're not sure what to do with those, but it'll be real nice to just deliver instant messaging, and the firefighters appreciate it as well, and it's a great addition, so we appreciate
Yeah,
it.
they really did turn out well, and I don't know if anyone here has had a chance to go by them and take a look at them, but they are very cool, and the new
Yeah.
fire trucks coming up on there, and
Yeah, we can
it's pretty cool.
show everything we're doing. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Lieutenant?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Before I get started, I'd like to take a moment to recognize, we have two honorable judges here with us from 52-1 District Court. We have the Honorable Judge David Law, and we have Judge Travis Reed. So would either of you guys like to say something, or you just want to hang out for a moment? All right, perfect.
Putting everybody on the spot
All right.
tonight.
You don't want to give a judge a microphone.
Thank you, sir. All right. So I don't have any major incidents to report, just a couple of quick announcements. The Aquinas Club of South Lyon, they will be hosting their annual Easter Egg Scramble on April 16th. That's going to be held at Volunteer Park in South Lyon. We'll have representatives from the Sheriff's Office, the South Lyon Police Department, Lyon Township firefighters, and South Lyon firefighters. We'll be there for the kids. So they're going to be running 4 fields. It starts at noon sharp, and they ask that if any parents want to come with their kids, they show up by around 11 a.m. to get them a chance to prepare. Let me see here, and if you have any questions about this event, please contact Abe, 248-939-6432, or Phil Weipert at 248-486-1100. One more announcement, and then I'll be done, I promise. Now, you know, the Sheriff's Office, we have our Operation Medicine Cabinet that we do 5 days a week from 7A to 3P. What we do is we accept all medications or drugs that people may have that may be older, outdated, that they like to get rid of. So, like I said, we do that 5 days a week, but we partner with the DEA twice a year. They call this the National Take Back, Drug Take Back event. They do it in the spring and fall. So this year we'll be doing it on April 30th. That's a Saturday. It's going to run from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. So I will have a deputy there staffed for individuals that can't make it through the week. You can come, you can bring anything in and we'll accept it. The only thing we ask is that you do not bring needles, aerosols, and if you bring liquids, they be sealed. All right. And that's it. That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions for me?
All right, Lieutenant, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to the Planning Commission.
Okay, we had one planning commission meeting in February, and it was Monday, February 14th. We held 2 public hearings. The first one was model homes text amendment, and we actually tabled that because we got some feedback from some of our developers. The second one was non-conforming uses and structures text amendment, and that was recommended to the board. We had no old business. My other sheet. Oh, sorry, right there. New business, we had the Orchard Crossing Plan Development Final Review, and that was recommended to the Township Board. We had the South Hill Business Park West Site Plan Review, and that was recommended to the board. And we also had the Wallbridge LDC 3 Site Plan Review, and that was also recommended to the board. And that concludes my report. If you have any questions?
Okay, any questions?
Most of it's on our agenda anyways.
All right, we're going to move on to ZBA.
We did not have an applicant on, for February, and we do not have an applicant for the March meeting.
Okay, well, that's a fast report. Any questions for Lisa? We're going to move on to the Building Department. Dave, anything? Building Department, you got anything for us?
No, I just have January's numbers in front of me, and I think I've already read those.
Okay, that was last meeting?
Yeah. Things have slowed down a little bit with the weather. The frost laws went on today, so that kind of stymies things a little bit. But I'm predicting a busy spring, as long as interest rates, stay about where they're at. I mean, that can make a big difference. So, other than that, we do have a new lady that we hired in the office. It's going to start on the 16th of this month. So, yeah, but she's going to work out real well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Any questions of the Building Department? All right, we'll move on to the water. And the water situation we have, we're still working on the softening plant. We have gotten a lot of the back orders in. They're building the containment walls, and it's going along pretty well. And again, I want to open an invitation to anyone on the board that would like to go visit the new softening plant. I think you'd find it pretty interesting, and it's really going to be some great water coming to the township. It's going to be soft. It's crazy. I'm sorry, I get giddy about the water. We worked hard to get great water for the township, and we have it. So we're very, very pleased.
John, I have a question about that. Are the residents going to be able to get rid of their soft water units then?
Yes. Yes, when the central softening systems are all up and running, we have 2, one at South Hill, one at Woodwind. Yes, be able to get rid of their softening.
Good.
Yep. Any questions? We're getting there.
I said ours is going to go any day. So.
And I'm just saying, there's a little test that I like to run. We really filter the water. We take out a lot of things right now, and I think the only thing that makes it to your house now is the calcium, the hardness. A lot of people have been bypassing their water softeners to try it, to see if it changes. Now, it's not going to give you the sudsing. You're not going to feel the sliminess that you feel when you get great soft water. I mean, when it's completely soft, you feel the slime on your skin, and you won't feel that. You won't get the suds in your washing machines, but it's worth trying to see the water's completely filtered. So it might be worthwhile.
Good way, right? He says there's slime.
Well, it depends on how you look at slime.
He didn't say sludge, so I don't know.
I did not say sludge. The slime comes from softening. It doesn't come from our plant. Okay, any questions? All right, then we're going to close the reports and move on to unfinished business. And we have 2 second reading for ordinance amendments. First one is on the solid waste collection and disposal, and I don't believe that one has changed.
Correct.
I'll move the adoption of ordinance 05-22.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to move on to the second adoption, second reading. This is for signs, and I believe Chris was good at looking through and making the few errors we had in parts of that, and we fixed that.
Yep.
So it is ready?
It's all good. Yeah, I can make a motion to approve the adoption of ordinance number 0622.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to move on to the third and unfinished business discussion regarding the new library.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good evening. I am Amy Deeds, trustee of Lyon Township Public Library. I am going to turn it over to Ann Dilcher. She is the architect from Quinn Evans that we hired to go over our site study findings with you. And then Holly and I will be making a few comments also. So I'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
And I have a thumb drive with the presentation.
Brian's going to help us.
Brian's our techie.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm happy to be back here after presenting a few years ago. Quinn Evans has been hired by the library board to go ahead and do some more site work and look at library sites. We were involved in 2016, I want to say. Many of you might have been involved. We had some really great community engagement sessions, process of looking through at least 8 different sites throughout the township, thinking about where might be a good site, both privately owned, township-owned sites to talk about the library. Since then, we then did some more investigation on what on this graphic is Site 1 that we call the Mill River Milford Road site, and did a little more evaluation of that site. And then now we've come back by the library board to look a little bit more and look at costs, not just only at that site, but to look at the current location of the library, which is the number 2 on that graphic, and then also to look at the 11-mile Milford Road site on there. These were sites 1 and 3 were the top 2 sites from that earlier work in 2016, 2017 with the community. So as we move in, this next slide just is a snapshot trying to understand, updating from the work we did earlier in terms of where the township sits in terms of library service. Working with libraries all across the state, really there's a general rule of thumb. If you just came to me and said, you know, we don't have a library, what size library would you recommend? You start with 1 square foot per person in the township. So I would come in and say, you know, somewhere 24,000 square foot. If knowing nothing else, that's what I might say. Not worrying about dollars, not worrying about location, that's about what you'd say. And you can see that kind of plays out with Salem South Lyon, Milford, Wixom's a little lower than that. What we're presenting tonight and what we really based our work off of is what we had looked at in 2019, which was a 19,000 square foot library, which is a
you know, a tremendous bump from the library that's there now. And at that point seemed like was at a price point that the library might consider going out to a millage. So that's sort of your comparison of library size, library services. So looking through, this presentation is just going to briefly run through the 3 locations, the 3 sites, and costing on those 3 sites and some pros and cons that we looked at. The Mill River, Milford Road site was the #1 site coming out of that public engagement process. There's benefits with the utilities readily available, space for future expansion, there's adjacent housing. And then on the other side of it, we know, we've heard that it might be under consideration by the township for fire station headquarters safety complex. So it may have another use that it's targeted for already. And then we also know that there's a consent decree on this property, which might add quite a bit of cost to the project. So as we looked at this, we came through updating costs, thinking about this as in if there was a construction happened in starting fall of 2023. So sort of figuring dates pushing out, it all escalates from there. But we looked at the new building construction costs, looked at buildings, say, like White Lake Township seemed to be a good comparison, and we've been working on several library projects with that contractor. So talk to them, how would they escalate cost per square foot, sort of that same level of finish, level of architecture for a building. So that's one of the projects that we looked at in terms of coming up with a cost per square foot, and then working with civil engineering, looking at site work costs, which are very different for each of these sites going forward. So you can see here our project cost came down to just under $10 million for this project with the 19,000 square foot building. But we found out about the consent decree, and so we have sort of below that line adding on almost $1.2 million that would need to be paid out on top of it, bringing it to around 11.2, just under 11.2 on that project site. Then we looked at the existing library site. On this site, the library did go ahead and have geotechnical soil borings done and had that investigation just to understand there had been rumors out there that this site had poor soils, and we wanted to clarify that. No, is that true? Is that not? Is that a rumor? It is indeed true. The soils are very poor on this site, and to build on this site, you'd require deep foundations. So we've reflected that in an added cost per square foot, looking at the costs on this site. There's also a concern here about needing engineered septic and well. The township utilities are sort of equidistance far in either north or south. So it's very hard to get township utilities to the site. And other issue with this site is that the library would need to find a place to operate off-site for at least 12 months because they'd need to move out because this whole place would be a construction site. There's not just expanding on the existing building due to the parking needs, and then also for the size of the library on this site, it would need to go to a 2-story building. And so here you see we've reflected the size of the building as not 19,000, but as 22,000 square feet, because when you go to a 2-story building, to get the same amount of library use space, you have a lot more circulation. You have to add 2 staircases. You have to add an elevator. And so you have to build in additional square footage to come up with the same amount of sort of usable square footage. So that's where the apples to apples putting this building in. And there's really no space for future expansion on the site. And then also a question of, even looking at this, we haven't identified where that septic field would go on the site. So it's just a very tight site for the library use to build and stay on the site that it's on. So talking through those are really sort of the cost drivers that are built into the construction cost estimate on here. That gets us to a little over 12.5 million as our bottom line. So we've increased the cost per square foot a bit, looking at the need for the deep foundation system, and then the overall square footage is a little larger as well, so that drives up that cost number. And then the site costs on this one actually are probably a little less, but how it works into the total dollar amounts on the numbers. Finally, looking at the last site, the 11 Mile and Milford Road site, what you see here is a document that your engineer put together when you guys were looking at this as a park and doing some cost estimating for it to be a park, and what does it cost to access the site, to build access across the drain from Milford Road. And this was a site that we had looked at because previously in 2006, pairing recreation and library, they're great uses that work well together. We're seeing a lot of trends of that, whether it's libraries in park settings, whether it's library and recreation buildings together. Library and ice rink in Illinois, I saw a presentation on, we're seeing a lot more of that kind of connection because they're shared uses there. And then this is a central location within the township, and it could be designed to allow for a future expansion of the library if it was needed. So those are sort of the pluses on this. On this one, we just did a couple quick sketches seeing where it might lay out. I think it would be some discussion in terms of the park use and what are priorities on the park use that was shown previously. Are there ball fields, amphitheater, which are priority? Here we set it so that it's can get some visibility off of Milford Road, because we thought that would be important, and it could be a nice iconic building there coming up and down Milford. And you see, even though you're coming over on 11 Mile to get to it, it has good visibility. The other option we looked at briefly was here, putting it onto what was one of the two large ball fields, and it could kind of sit more into the site. There could be the drop-off for the books, could also become a drop-off for the amphitheater and the ball fields, which is the loop shown on the north end of that building. We also looked and talked some about is it possible to come off of Milford if it's library-only use. I think that needs to be further studied. Talking to the County Road Commission, it wasn't completely shot down. There are the site distances there and would need to be some improvement. But if it's truly park and library, I think it depends on the usage numbers and what the traffic is coming in and out, whether that's viable or not. Certainly it's a much less expensive way to go. But when we looked at our cost estimates and the cost drivers on this, we did assume a vehicular crossing of the drain, which were numbers that we had from the work the township had done. The township had also done geotechnical soil borings on this site, so we had that information to understand that, where we were looking at placing the buildings, we would do that further, but the soils didn't appear to be so poor as on the existing site. The library board felt strongly that you would really need to pave the 250 feet from the intersection of 11 Mile and Milford to where you come in. That hadn't been included on the other estimates, and so we looked at similar paving projects within the township to get a number for that site work as well. What the cost does not include is if you were going to extend the pedestrian crossing, which is there at Milford and 11 Mile, you'd come across Milford, but then you need to bridge over and come over the drain from the pedestrian corner. And so that's, you know, an estimated added $240,000, which is not in our $11.7 million estimate for this site. So that's the quick summary I have here. I'm happy to answer questions and flip back through some of the slides.
How many square feet? I'm sorry.
It's 19,000 square feet.
Okay,
So
that was
that was really our base, was trying to keep apples to apples at
Okay.
19,000 square feet. Could be more, could be less, but for these three, we wanted to do the numbers on a comparative buildings.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? The architect?
Just in your total figure, that's not including the, like, once you sell the bonds, there's interest on that? That's not included in this, is it?
No.
Okay.
That's not included.
Okay. I appreciate that. I wondered why the existing library was 22,000.
Sure.
But that makes logical sense.
Okay.
Going up and buying that.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. If you, in looking at the material on page 9, where it shows site at the 11 Mile Park and option 2 with the potential alternate entry, what would the cost be, or do you have a cost of a pedestrian crosswalk if you were to go with that as an entrance versus you
The
mentioned-
pedestrian would probably still say the same on this piece, because you wouldn't come up and cross at that vehicular.
Okay.
The pedestrian that we're talking about is coming from here.
Right.
So they can come this way, but then you'd have to bridge over or tunnel, and you'd have to cross Milford as opposed to crossing the drain. And so.
Right. So the cost would basically, I mean, you would still have the crosswalk at the 11 and
Yes.
Milford
Yeah.
intersection. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. You want to continue?
Thanks, Ann.
Sure.
And so just that 19,000 square feet, that's a downsized project from what we went for on the ballot in 2016, because that was a 24,000 square foot building. So we chose to go with a smaller project size in reaction to community feedback at the time, because obviously it did not win at the ballot. So we realized when you look at those numbers and the comparisons with other communities, it still looks a little small compared to what other communities have, but we felt like we needed to present a project that the community could get behind. So on February 21st, we held an open house at the library for residents to come to the library and see the presentation that Ann just presented now. We had over 100 residents participate either in person or virtually over Zoom, and we've had over 100 views of the meeting on YouTube of that sense, because we recorded it and it's also posted. Also, this presentation and any other documents relating to this project are all on our website if you wanted to go and see there. There's a link to the YouTube video, this presentation, and lots of other past documents for people who are kind of looking at the history of where we got to where we are now. So we were obviously very excited for the turnout that we had from the community, and there were lots of questions and concerns, from the community about the project. We did have people vote that day, where they could come up and put a sticker on the site for which location that they chose. And we also, who participated on Zoom also voted, and then we put the stickers on there for them. So the number one site was 42 for Mill River, and then 38 votes for 11 Mile and Milford Road, and only 4 votes for the current library site, which really isn't surprising once you see the costs that go with it. So we've also had 370 responses to our library facility survey, which went live 3 weeks ago. This is the last of a series of surveys that we've asked of the residents to respond to. We've also done one about children and teen services, one on technology, adult services, and digital services. So despite the fact that on all those other surveys, we asked no questions about the library facility, we received dozens of comments of, when are we going to get a new library? You don't have enough space for children's services. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? And that was before we even had the library facility survey. So 85% of respondents from that library facility survey want a new library. So, I mean, I think that's fairly clear. The most frequently mentioned reasons for why we need a new library is there's no available space, there's no available seating, there's no space for the children's area, and we don't have enough room for collection size. We've had many comments about the fact that when people come to the library, they come in, they get their stuff, they leave, they don't stay. When they want to have like an event or they want to spend an afternoon at the library with their kids, they go to another community to do that. And we even had somebody who moved to Lyon Township from South Lyon, and they said that their biggest disappointment was the library because they missed those opportunities with their kids. And we've had so many people moving to this community from other areas that have good library services, and they're kind of appalled when they arrive, especially considering that we also know that a lot of realtors tell them that that their library is Salem South Lyon. So that's what they think that they're getting. And then when they go over there and say, oh no, I'm sorry, your library is here, and then they're really not happy when they show up. They're like, you've got to be kidding me. This is the library? Why don't we have a new library? So this is why we're doing this. We are responding to the residents' comments. I mean, I think all of this describes that we have a very much an urgency for community space in Lyon Township. Residents want a space that is adequate for their family's needs, a space for lifelong learning, for workshops and events, and a place for children to come to enjoy, and a gathering place for all ages. Most residents, as we know through our work and dealing with them at the library and from the surveys and from the feedback that we get, they come, they don't want to stay, they want to stay. They want that space in their community. So we provide hundreds of events, lectures, workshops, and learning experiences to thousands of residents per year, virtually and in person. I don't see the virtually part going away. People really like that part. That's one good thing, I guess, that came out of COVID. Those events are on such varied topics as health, history, science, arts and crafts, and finance. Libraries in general are responsive, community-driven hubs of education, creativity, connection, and resources. Libraries can be a welcoming public space that serve a wide range of purposes for community members, and we want to be that space for Lyon Township. Over 50% of households in Lyon Township have active library card holders living in them, because we find that most often families, there's only one library card holder for the whole family. So over 50% of township families have walked through our doors in the past 36 months. If you don't use your library card, it expires. So this is not a small group of people in Lyon Township. It's over half. In 2021, we circulated over 100,000 physical items from our building and over 30,000 checkouts of ebooks, audiobooks, and streaming content. So our library is definitely being used. We provide to the residents of Lyon Township services that many would consider being provided for by a community center. We do blood drives, electronic recycling, paper shredding events. We bring in the Secretary of State. We manage the community garden. We host coffee hours with local representatives, and we provide space for homeowners associations, local nonprofits, and civic organizations to meet. I've heard members of the community and board members state that we might need a community center in the township, and I don't think you realize that we're already doing that for you. Many of our neighboring communities, some that have much larger populations than Lyon Township, do not have a community center because the community and the leadership understand that the library in this day and age provides that space for the residents. So Amy, do you want to take over?
Ali, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you put yet how many mills you think you're going to be asking the public for this yet? Have you guys gotten that far yet?
For the amount for a building?
Yes.
Well, no, because we have different amounts, so.
Well, they're very close. So
They're very close, but no, we haven't gone that far yet.
So you don't know how many mills yet? I'm just asking.
No, we do not.
No. So I just want to wrap this up. The Lyon Township community, I think, has demonstrated the need and the want for a new library with their responses to our surveys and our focus groups in 2019 and now in 2022. The residents of Lyon Township want a new library because the current facility just is not meeting their needs for services and for space. And it really does not have the capability to do so. On behalf of all the residents who have participated in our surveys, attended our open houses, come to our board meetings, or who's ever just walked in and asked, oh, I thought we were going to build a new library. I would like to ask the township for the use of township property so we can build a new library in Lyon Township. I would like to present these in ranked order based on the community feedback, as number 1 was Mill River, as voted on, and then number 2 was Milford Road, an 11-mile park site. The library board is not interested in pursuing the current location for a library due to the obvious reasons of the much larger infrastructure cost, the size limitations of the property, and the potential for an increased operational budget for the need for a second floor, more staff watching the second floor, etc. This is demonstrated community need and one that we feel should be supported and recognized by the township administration. So, what are we asking for? Basically, we are asking for your board to make a decision, a voted on decision about these properties. The library board does not want to spend more money, of the taxpayer money, to research these further if these properties are never going to be available to us to use, or a joint venture is not going to ever happen. So if we could come to a decision about a couple of them, and then we could move forward, I guess.
Okay. I have one question, and maybe for the architect.
Mm-hmm.
How many acres do you actually need for a building like this?
That came up at the community meeting, and it's a hard one to answer in a sense because it depends on the condition of the site. We'll see here at the existing library. We're doing at wrong button. 3 acres. We have 3.7 acres at the Mill River. I would throw out there 4 to 5 acres. It depends how much wetlands is on the is on the property. So it's how you can lay it out. If it's somewhere that's really convenient and is very, lets you do it very compactly, But if they're looking at sites, I would say, look in the 4 to 6 acre.
Okay. I've been a proponent of the 11-mile park, and I think that's a wonderful place to put it. And my preference would be to work with it there, and I could get behind that. That's just me. Now, Mill River is we're looking at that for a safety complex. It's being assessed for that. My question about the library is, there's opportunities maybe for a joint library safety. I'm looking at kind of down the road for everything. And possibly maybe that's an avenue too we can look at. And that's just me talking. You know, I've never disagreed we need a new library. I think our biggest kick around is where to put it. And I think that we all, I shouldn't say we all, I'm going to say myself, I don't have a problem with the new library, but I do think the millage is going to be a tough sell. I don't know how big it'll be, but by the numbers that we're seeing right here at, 11, 12 million, that could be quite a bit for each household to swallow. So, but that's really a campaign for you guys, right? I mean, it's not going to be an easy, I mean, you know how it is right now. Gas is going to 7, 8, people are going to start worrying about where their next meal's coming from. So there's going to be a little bit of a fight for that. But I'm going to go ahead and open it up. You guys want to talk about it? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. And Amy, thank you. Amy and I had a nice conversation today, and I had bounced some things off of her, and I always appreciate your time. I agree, I think, and I mentioned this to Amy today, I think the 11-mile site provides, and it was mentioned, I think, I picked up on it, the partnership, someone said it, and when we talked about this a couple months ago, that was kind of what, I guess in my mind, kind of sort of sparked the thought that there's no better place for it. We have a desire to use that for a park. It's going to require us to have access. It's going to require us to have parking lots and all kinds of other amenities that we would have to pay for, and many things you would be able to utilize and may have to pay for on another site. So why not find a way? We've already done park design. Why not find a way to kind of merge these things together? I mean, that figure was 11.6 million. Well, it wouldn't be that much if we were to come in and partner on the crossing of the drain, because I think the 11-mile exit or entrance is the way to go. I think option 1 and site 3 is the way to go. Put the building closer to the road, get it out of the influence of some of those fields. It provides you with the area you need for a building, provides you visibility up on the road. Nobody needs to see a football field. No one needs to see a baseball field. Those people are going there for a reason. People want to see the library. And I think that, there's a lot of cross promotion, maybe not the proper term. That's more of a business term, I guess. But there are a lot of events where people would be using indoor and outdoor space. There's a way to build a building, even if we had to participate, to where some of the facilities in that building would be for the park too. We talked about bathrooms today as an example. Nobody wants to go to a park with their kids and not know where the bathroom's at or use a porta potty. So build a couple of bathrooms that have an exterior door, within that footprint. And, obviously, if it's for the park, I would say that we'd have some responsibility to pay for that and help maintain all that, just like the parking lot. I don't know, I think you could go on, and I know that's the purpose of tonight isn't to plan every facet of this, but it just makes sense. Our constituents are your constituents, and they expect that we're going to be careful with every dollar of theirs. And so why not combine our desires and our needs and their desire for park facilities with all the same things in the library side of the equation. I think it was mentioned that you might need 3 or 4 acres for a library. Well, that's if you're going to go find a site and build a library. That's not how much space your building is going to take up. If we're sharing a parking lot, you're worried about a 19,000 square foot footprint with a few thousand square feet for future, a future addition down the road. So I don't think that this building would really take up that much space on that very large site. I mean, number 3 is far and away the largest site with the most flexibility to do some of the things that we're talking about doing. So again, I think we've sort of put our first foot forward with park design, but held off because of some of the drain issues. And I think, Leslie, we talked about, I think the new huts, that's the drain that we're,
No,
that's the Novi Lion drain. Okay, yeah, okay. We've got a lot of drain problems in town.
This is drain number 2 biggest problem, I guess.
Okay, well, there's a list of them. So, yeah, so, I mean, there's work to be done, and it just seems like this would be an opportunity to do it together. If, the voters support a millage for a new library, I think we have funds that could be set aside and dedicated for our half of some of these shared infrastructure costs, which open up an opportunity for us to bring in, more facilities sooner that we may not have had the funds set aside for right now because we were going to have to pay the full freight. So again, it's going to bring your cost down, it's going to bring our cost down, it's going to bring more people there to enjoy all of those public, acres. all those facilities. And I don't know of another, I guess, park and library in our area that would be quite like this. So I think it'd be, pretty fantastic. The library would happen probably in a more compact time frame than all of maybe the park improvements, but that doesn't really matter. It still becomes a destination as soon as there's good access to it. So I'll rest before everybody else falls asleep here.
Are you kidding? You're going to rest?
Yeah, I'll take a breath before I pass out. So.
Well, I can be pretty brief, I guess. Just like I said in the past, either site, 1 or 3 is fine. I can see the connectivity issues, like with site 1. I know we've talked about even the safety town there. It could be incorporated alongside with the library to kind of have that go hand in hand. The park, obviously, at site 3 as well. So, and the shared infrastructure cost. The comments I've received from the public are kind of the mainly how much, and Patty asked, what's the millage rate, and so I know that's probably based on which site's selected. So, and the concern's always how much, and if site 1's the cheapest, that's probably my favorite. But if site 3 with the cost sharing brings it down, it sounds like it would if the township's willing, if we're all in agreement to do it. I guess either one, site 1 or site 3, it's fine with me.
Just one more thing. I think Site 3 is an amazing site. I look at Site 3 with all the wetlands and all the things that would go along with the library, teaching about birds. I mean, that whole backside is I think it's a dedicated wetland. I don't even think they can build on there. And I think you have so much, that could be a destination. And that's what I'm saying. That piece could be a destination for everybody in the township, not just the library, but for the park, amphitheaters. I mean, you could say Mill River's a good one, but I'll tell you, it doesn't have near the character of that number 3. And I think the key to number 3 is getting into it. And I think that's kind of a minor thing, really. I mean, I know it costs money, but working together, I don't think that it's a hill too high to climb. I mean, my opinion. Go ahead, you guys.
John,
Patty?
I'm not going to repeat what Sean and Chris have said, but I had a conversation with Holly, and I spoke to her already in previous conversations. I think that the Mill River location, well, I'm not a fan of the Mill River location. I think that the park site is ideal, and especially in looking at some of the previous projects that we've done with the sidewalk committee, we've been looking at trying to find that connectivity of pathways and trying to get to the park. And for example, the little segment, little segment along 11 Mile with those 4 houses by Elko Farms. We prioritize some of these segments to have connectivity to the park location, and just looking at an aerial of that area, the subdivisions and planned developments that would have access, like would be able to walk or bike Elk Run, Crystal Creek South, Hidden Timbers, all of Elko Farms, all of Daria Circle, so that would be Hornbrook, I think, all of Jim, what's your subject? Thank you. Lots of carriages, I remember.
Because there's a road that connects the two.
And then I continued looking over into, west of Martindale, and with the bike path, we would be able to have a connection from anybody on the south side of, whether it's the city residents or the township residents south of 11 Mile, continuing on that rail trail, and then being able to continue on the south side of 11 Mile. So I just see all of that opportunity to get to this destination as a huge, I'm not sure how many people would bike from from the south side of the township, but at least that option is there. It's a safe sidewalk or pathway, so I think that it meets, that 11 Mile and Milford location meets multiple needs for our community, and I definitely support a library location there. That's it.
All right. Yeah, I The 11 Mile and Milford Park site has kind of been my favorite for a while now in this process. Kind of like Chris, I'm not necessarily opposed to Mill River either. But like I said, I think it would probably be wise to see what the Redstone survey comes back and says about what the potential safety uses there are. But that is, again, a possible combined setup. I had some conversations with different library people as well about the synergies between the library and the park and the programming opportunities that opens up. The savings not just on site access, but building additions, like not necessarily having to have a separate pavilion with the bathrooms, as was mentioned. They can, going back to that functioning as a community center concept, the amount of programming that you could offer, where if we did build an amphitheater, they could probably help us out with actually getting different events to take place there. Obviously, we can talk about the site configuration later, but that's still my favorite. And the only other thing, I guess, was that I appreciate the geotechnical work on the current site, because that had been one of my questions for a while here, was just show me why the current site doesn't work definitively, and I can definitely see the challenges with that now.
Ready for me? Okay.
Put up the mic.
I'm just checking. Well, I also support the 11 Mile and Milford site for many reasons. Number one, it's the center of the township, and that has been one of your main goals, is to have it in the center of the township. Even though it's not that far away, it's still the center of the township. And I know we already have a gem, which is the War Dog Memorial. I think having the library and the additional parking, which would be also for the park, I think that would help out the War Dog Memorial. And the township spent a lot of money putting the sidewalk down 11 Mile. That was a big thing because we thought we were going to have a park. So I also agree with Sean, every board member here, that I worked really hard on that park that didn't get to come. And I would still like to be on that park committee working with the library, because I think it could be amazing. It could be, we could create a really wonderful name, some kind of, library center or Ann Park or whatever. Maybe you guys could have a contest or something, to name it that like the compound. But I think having that, like John said, you might find some interesting wildlife. You guys have done such an amazing job with the community garden, and I think there might be a lot of things to offer. Maybe you have like a 7-year-old that's going to go for the book reading, and you take your other smaller child out to the playground. Things like that. And I think it would be an amazing site, and if we could work together on it, like Sean said and John said and everybody here said, we know we have to cross the drain. We'd just be helping each other. We'd be creating the park and you'd be creating the library. That sounds like a definitely win-win. And I just think, and plus you guys have a lot of knowledge about things too. Maybe you could help us thinking of things for the park that might benefit the library. That's what you guys do every day, So you might be able to think of, programs that we're not thinking of, or areas, but we really wanted the amphitheater. We were hoping to have some soccer fields. We were hoping to have a playground, a place for food trucks. I know, Holly, you were really great about your reading group. Maybe you guys could have, your outdoor reading park in our park, in the summer instead of, somewhere else. So I am 100% behind the 11 Mile Milford Park, and I think for a lot of reasons, but I still want to stay on that park committee because that's very near and dear. So it's more exciting to think about it. So that's just my 2 cents. And I just want to say this. Everybody, I can't imagine one person that doesn't want a new library, because I get what you're saying. But the problem is they have to want to pay for it. And that's what it comes down to, the bottom line. And that's why I'm really curious about what are you looking for the millage? And then we just got, everybody is just getting their assessment notices, and you know the township went up 3.3% in your taxable value. So that's really pretty high for us. So I'm just anxious to see if this is your spot, what is the millage we're going to be asking the residents for? How many years? How long are we going to take the bond out? I mean, that's what I'm always thinking. So, but those are my 2 cents.
That was 4 cents, but we'll say 2.
I wanted to talk
Michelle?
longer than Sean.
It's impossible.
You want to add anything, Michelle?
No, I think everybody had good ideas, and I agree with the park. I think it'd be a great site if we could combine there.
Come on up, but we don't want your 4 cents either.
What's that?
He's kidding you.
I didn't hear him. It's tough being 70. No, Jim Chuck, Carriage Club. I just wanted to make a comment. What I just heard tonight is encouraging. I read and I was told that typically the public sector is 5 to 7 years behind, the private sector is behind the private sector. In other words, what I heard, if you're thinking about the future, if you're not thinking about the future today and you're thinking about it tomorrow, you're too late. And what I just heard was you're thinking about the future. And that speaks volumes of where we need to go, the joint, the shared costs, the responsibilities, and we build a complex, a destination point. And then adding the war memorial or the dog cemetery, nothing in Oakland County can beat it. So I liked what I heard tonight, and I just wanted to give my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'd be kind of cool if you guys had a class to go right across the street and talk about the War Dog Memorial.
We
That-
actually have them come in about
Oh,
once a year
see?
already.
Isn't it? But it, I mean, literally,
Right. It would be right there.
I
Does
know.
Phil come in and talk to you?
Mhm.
Guy
Isn't he
will make you
amazing?
cry for days.
Yeah, he can. But, yeah.
But I think that we're all on, if you guys agree, I think that's our move forward. I mean, I hope you agree. And believe me, if all we have to do is get across the drain, I know we can put our heads together and do that.
No, I mean, we're
'Cause
very...
we want it too.
I'm glad to hear all your comments, encouraged by them. I guess, encouraged by all the comments. I guess, so just in case we have patrons coming back to us because the cheapest place is Mill River, I just
Only a
want
few
to,
votes.
I know. But you know how that is. So when we have them come to us and say, but why didn't you go there, when some people still, Chris said he didn't care, Robert said he didn't care, like, are you going to use that for something else? Is that what we tell them? The township's going to use that property for something else, so it's really not an option and not one that you would agree with anyway.
I guess if I can add something here, it's not simply that there's the consent that deals with the 15% on top.
Yeah.
It also requires that we use that individual as the builder, okay? So that's an unknown right there because his costs may be greater than another builder's would be.
Right.
So it's hard to definitely say what the cost of that project would be.
I think it's a pretty significant encumbrance. I mean,
Yeah.
even if we were to arrive at a conclusion of maybe what we would want to use that for down the road, I got to tell you, I mean, to know you have to use a builder and then pay a 15% premium, I mean, they're basically throwing away over $1 million that could be used on a site that's got far more, I think, opportunity. And again, Carol, I wasn't thinking about that, but to have to use a specific contractor.
No, we aren't excited
horrible.
about that either.
Right. I mean, it takes,
And
obviously,
just think we didn't know about that the first time.
I didn't know about it either.
Yeah, no one knew about that before, so.
Plus, I'm sure you want to, when or if you build it out, you want to get a builder that usually does libraries. That's
Correct.
what you really want because they know what they're doing. They kind of specialize it. We did that when we built the 2 fire stations. So we seeked out
Yeah.
and bid out to specific people that's what they do for a living.
Yeah, exactly.
So you probably want to seek out and bid for people that are used to building libraries. This person would probably
Mhm.
have no idea about building a library.
Yeah. Well,
There are specific things, that you need or want to know or have to put
Yeah.
your.
That's what we have Ann for.
Right.
Tell us.
She's shaking her head there, too. Yeah, you need the right
But
person.
it's true. You want it's your specialty, and you want to use You want to use the right person for the right job.
So, and I don't want to cut you off.
No,
I mean,
but
if
you
I'm the
probably know
library,
what
I'm
I'm-
also wondering what the next step is. And I don't know what
That
the
was my
timing is
question.
for- So if you're hearing, and it sounds like there's a consensus, John was reluctant to speak for everyone, but they all spoke for themselves, and I'm not 70, Jim, but you probably hear better than me. So
I am.
I'm close to 70. I mean, look at me. So I think that when you look at your prices are really close between the sites that were almost split evenly by the folks that participated in your survey. But that doesn't include any contribution. I mean, if we're going to be a partner with you, well, then you're not going to pay for all of the things that we're going to use. We're going to figure out how that cost sharing works. The big things are the crossing, the 250 feet of paving of the road, the parking lot. Those are things that, at least in my opinion, we can't expect for you to pay. It would be a split.
Yeah, it's mutual.
Right. And not only the creation of all these improvements, but the maintenance of them going forward. You're not maintaining a parking lot with 150, whatever the number is, and plowing the snow by yourselves. I mean, all of these things would be shared, and we both benefit from that sharing going forward. So it's not just the upfront cost that I think will end up being a little less, but it's the ongoing maintenance costs, the eventual replacement of some of those capital facilities over time that will be, I guess, a greater savings for both of us in working together. And I think the next step would be to have a discussion as to where you can plunk this footprint in, what your parking demands are compared to our original estimated parking demands for parking. It sounds like a little bit of planning and engineering needs to go on so we can determine how, and there's a start to it, but it's just a concept at this point. So that would be, I guess, my thought on what the next steps, because when you're going to go to the public, whenever it is you want to go to the public to ask them, they're going to have all these questions. So
Right.
you're going to need to kind of lay that out. You're going to need to know
And
what
yeah,
we're
like Patty said, we need to come up with a number. Yeah, so it's
I'm
going to be a
sure-
real
I'm
joint
sure
effort then if we're
Leslie's
going to
gonna
do a
have to work
combined.
with-
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we do have a design there, but I think it's going to be, that's kind of exciting for us too. I think once we put all our heads together and started talking about it, that, we could, like Sean said, we're going to get a park. You guys are going to get a library.
Yeah.
How exciting is that? That's just a definitely win-win for everyone.
The people that ask you, where's the improved library? Where's the new library? Where's a library that's large enough to fit all the things we want to see? You hear from those people. We hear more from the parks folks saying there's been a sign up there that has been there, since
Years.
before my 8th grader was, roaming the earth, and it's like, what's going on? And so, we're hearing from those people. So this is a way to address all those desires and needs of our community.
Plus, we already have dedicated money to start the process, because we were diligent getting money from developers. So we have a pot already. So we could use, that to start, figuring out the engineering and the design. Well, not maybe your building, you'll do that, but you know what I mean? So we can all fit it. We already have some money for that because we wanted the park. So this is, I don't know.
I guess just
Make it pretty, Holly.
at the end of last year, it was a little confusing because we had talked about it September, I don't know, August, a joint thing, and then at the end of the year, it was kind of like, no, that's not in the budget. So then we were like, I guess we kind of got to the point, so we're not going to do a joint. So
I think,
now you're saying you're more, you have some funds there.
but I think the whole thing came back to, we've got to figure out where you need to be.
Okay.
Where you need to be, right? We have to figure that out. And now that we know where you're going to be, it sounds like we're all ready to help you get this thing moving.
Okay.
I mean, I threw that 11-mile park out back on a virtual meeting. I remember I said, boy, I'd love for you to go there. And then everything kind of went sideways back to Abbey Park. And I really think the 11-mile park would be an amazing thing. But, so there's where I think we go forward now.
Okay.
If you guys agree, and you do like the 11-mile park, and you have to agree because it's your building, you're going to go in and, right, you're going to have to do it. I think we're there. I think by what you just heard from this board tonight, we are there. We're on board for the 11-mile park, and I just think now, I think Patty's going to have to get involved, and once you figure out, like with your architect, where the building footprint will go, okay? How does our park not encumber you? You can't have that in your way, so there's some figuring out to do. And I think, we're willing to pay Leslie to help out, we always have. So I think that's where we should start.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we could have some meetings to start working on it. So you
Hang on one
guys
second,
can
I'll
get
bring you
going.
up, okay?
Patty, I
All
have a
right.
question. Do you remember off the top of your head how much we have in that 11-mile park fund that's dedicated?
I'll have to look in the budget, but
Okay.
we have some substantial money.
Right. And then we also, I don't want to put all of our sidewalk pathway money into one particular location, but every time we have a developer who donates, it's in lieu of putting in a pathway. That's how we help fund some of these connection pieces. So I see that is an asset that collaborate with some financial obligations, and that we already have that money set aside for sidewalk pathways, so that connection or the crossing would be something that we would. It may not be in the park fund, but we already have it in the sidewalk fund.
Okay.
But I think we're on board, and I think to continue, I think we're good. I know this gentleman would like to come up and say, are you done, Amy? If not, you can continue. And okay, come on up.
Hi.
How you doing?
My name is Nicholas Basundath. I've been a resident here for 5 years, in Michigan for decades. I had two basic questions. One is, I understood that, or read somewhere, that the Parks Committee was dissolved. Is that correct? And how does that, if that's correct, how does that impact the development that the township would do to generate the park and all of those things that would be a joint project?
Well, I can
is that
answer your
gonna-
first question. The park committee was dissolved, and the only reason it was is we had trouble keeping members on it. So we brought it up to this board as an interim board, taking care of the parks for now. So if you have any questions or anything.
Yeah, we're going to be
come-
dealing with a lot of it
Yeah.
administratively. We have an administrative committee, and
Yeah, so anybody needs any park questions, they're welcome to come up to the board and we'll work it out.
That's good to know that it's not completely disbanded. And
Oh, no,
nothing's
no, no,
happened.
we have parks, we have to take care of them.
And I'm very heartened to hear the passion that many people here have, especially about certain sites. So it sounds like there's a consensus. I'm going to ask that the board vote, put it to a vote. And if you can't do it tonight, can you give us a date of when you can vote? Because it sounds like many people are very much on board with at least one of the sites. And there's a lot of passion for it. So in
Well, I
order to
think-
move forward, I know
No,
we have to
and-
do the logistics and we have to do the financials and whatnot, but without a site, you can't really do the deep dive. So I'm asking, will the board vote on a site tonight?
Well,
And
I
if
think,
not
first of
tonight,
all, we have
when
to
can you put
figure
it on the
out.
agenda?
I think we have to figure out the site and make sure it's going to work. Is it going to work for you? You're going to have to put the building on the site. I think that we've all said, we're on board.
But without
I
a
can
site, you
actually
can't
speak for
develop
that
the
now.
plans, right? You can develop plans for all three sites, but that's going to cost you a ridiculous amount of money.
I think that
So-
what they
But
said
we're
is
on.
following this
Do it.
board meeting, that there's going to be meetings between both sides. And then they'll start laying out the design and
Okay.
figuring out where various things would go. When that's done, then it would come back to the board, and by that time you'd have figured out how many mills you would have to ask for and everything else. And that's when, there'd be a final
Okay,
vote on it.
then that was my misunderstanding that there were
I
that many
wanna-
steps in the process.
I'm going to speak for Michelle, but but one of the things that I have concerns for Michelle on is timing wise, so that if the goal is to get this on the November ballot, that we try and meet that, because what I don't want her to have to do is have a special election like in next May or something of '23. So if we're going to do it, let's put it on the November ballot when it's the midterm, so everybody's going to be out and voting, and we get a good representation from the people to vote on it. So,
But you have to understand there have been some changes with the governor and the attorney general. Okay, we now have to have final language to them at least 90 days in advance for approval, whereas before it could be much closer. So you've got a very tight time frame.
So I guess my question is, when
For
you're
them
asking
to
for a
review
vote,
it, to approve it, to even place it onto the ballot.
you're not asking for us to have a vote on ballot language because you obviously don't have ballot language.
No.
Are you just asking, do you want us to have a formal commitment yet that, yes, we are willing to, this is the site that we are willing to, that
Yes.
we're agreeing with?
Yes,
Is
that's
that what-
wow.
Why,
Okay. Yeah, no, that's perfect.
just
That's
felt like
exactly
that
it.
was my
I'm not
question.
asking you to say, I'm going to, the board is going to appropriate X million dollars right now, although you did say there was a lot of planning, especially for the park aspect of it, which I think everybody's in agreement that that's a very positive thing for the community all the way. It was just the location so that more detailed stuff can go in and you can get all of the financials that are quite well understood, the logistics
Okay,
and so on and so
let's
forth.
cut this short. I have no problem making that vote.
I don't care.
I have no problem making that vote. If you want to hear a vote of commitment, I have no problem with that. Somebody would like to...
Well, wouldn't it have to be subject to them having a millage pass, though?
No, well, that would
Yes.
have to be part of that. They couldn't do it without that, so you could,
We're not
you
talking
could
about
make
a
that.
full
We can't-
intergovernmental agreement.
We can't just,
So-
carte blanche
Yeah.
at this point with the limited information you have. So it would be subject to further,
So it'd be subject to you get your millage passed, or otherwise the property reverts back to the township. I mean, that would be the motion, right?
I'll make a motion that
what?
we move ahead and work with the library to dedicate a portion of their Site 3, which is the 11-mile Milford Road project, understanding that there'll be further exploration on the site design, and understanding that it would be subject to millage being passed by the voters to approve the construction of a new library.
Support.
Oh, well,
I beat you to that, Robert.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Head out there.
Thank you very much. That's good choice.
I have no problem doing that, like I said. I've been on it all the time.
That's all the benefits, sir. We all talked about it, so thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Ally, get busy.
let's go, we got a big agenda.
All right, we still have a big agenda here, so I want to move on to new business. And the first item of new business, thank you, is South Hill Business Park West, AB 2202, Site Condominium Review. Brian, you going to start that one?
Yeah, John. Okay, so in February, the Planning Commission considered a site plan for the South Hill Business Park West. This is the almost 300-acre parcel that is undeveloped currently from the Wallbridge properties. Stretches from Milford Road all the way over to South Hill from east to west. As it's proposed, I have the site plan up on the screen. It would be developed in 7 lots, ranging from 18 acres to 74 acres. It is done with 3 common area detention facilities, marked ABC on the plans. It would be served by a single cul-de-sac coming off of South Hill Road. That's the large cul-de-sac you see right here. And then parcels, lots 5, 6, and 7 would be accessed off of Milford Road. We had many preliminary discussions with Wallbridge about how to break up this property, and this is one of the solutions that at least staff was on board with. Try to push a larger portion of deliveries and industrial traffic away from Milford Road and towards South Hill Road so that they can go up, use the intersection at South Hill and Grand River, and disperse from there. So I won't speak for Leslie, but this is a design concept that I think makes a lot of sense from a planning standpoint. To accomplish this, there is a rather lengthy cul-de-sac, 2,254 feet, so almost a half mile. which obviously exceeds our 660-foot length cul-de-sac limit for industrial roads. If you recall, we did get rid of that limitation for single-family residential developments for private roads. However, we did not amend the ordinance to get rid of that maximum for industrial roads. So any consideration of approval by the Township Board would require a waiver to that standard. Oakland County Road Commission has no concerns with the design as it is. It's a 36-foot wide road, so it well exceeds any of our standards today and can handle industrial traffic with no issue. There is also a bike path along South Hill Road that stops at the boulevard to this development, and then the remainder of the project would be handled, or the remainder of that sidewalk obligation along South Hill Road would be handled through a contribution to the township's fund. Part of that is due to the large wetland complex here at the southeast corner of the site along South Hill Road. It would require the installation of a boardwalk to make that come to fruition. And so the Planning Commission discussed that and felt that a contribution was appropriate at that location. The other thing for you to consider is, as part of the Wabasto building site plan, the Township Board approved that sidewalk along South Hill Road to be 8 feet in width. So the plans do propose that same 8-foot width walkway, well, almost a hybrid walkway pathway for this project to continue that width. So that would be another request of the Township Board to consider a waiver to that 10-foot requirement. We also note in our review that the project will fill 1.13 acres of regulated wetland. That is, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but that's this complex here. Wrong one.
No, I'll walk you through it.
You'll walk,
It's
okay.
actually significantly less than that.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that was the total. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. But part of those regulated wetland boundaries are within some of the sites, within some of the lots, and our subdivision ordinance prohibits wetlands on individual lots. In review of that ordinance, it's really intended to be more applied to single-family residential, where we don't want those wetlands on the individual lots. Within this site, any development that is going to come before the township goes through site plan review, where we can ensure appropriate wetland buffers are enacted and things like that. So for that reason, we don't have a planning issue with the township board waiving that standard either. Other than those comments, all of these sites are sized appropriately. They can handle very, very large buildings and likely will. The Planning Commission has already considered and will be considering a site plan for Parcel 1 in the next week. So movement is already going on there. If you were to approve the site condominium tonight, all of the condo docs, such as the master deed, would be reviewed administratively by staff, which is par for the course for these industrial developments. With that, the Planning Commission did approve the site plan contingent on approval of the site condominium by the Township Board, with a recommendation that you do approve that. That's also the planning recommendation this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Brian, thank you. Any questions for Brian at this time? Leslie, you have anything?
Yes, thank you. Well, my letter is included in your packet. It's dated February 28th, and there are many items listed in here, but mainly because there are so many details that have to be done administratively with regards to the stormwater management, relocation of the drain, easements, and permitting. But I did want to give an update to the board just in general on how we have been working with this applicant through the DDA mainly. All of you are aware of the significant amount of floodplain in the New Hudson area, your downtown, which is preventing redevelopment from occurring, as well as the Southeast Ring Road, which we've been working through for the past few years. And the applicant, there might be some details that you're not aware of, but wanted to mention that the partnership that Walbridge is working with the township The township is taking on the drainage improvements west of Milford Road along the airport and the Milford Road culvert, which has to be reconstructed. It needs to be wider, deeper, et cetera. Walbridge has committed to a third of the cost of the culvert, up to $250,000, as well as the relocation of the drain on their property, which will alleviate the floodplain so that the ring road can move forward. I thought it was important for you to have that update. Our letter does have many items, most of which has to do with the drainage district modifications that are required to accomplish this plan, as well as the permitting, even doing the new drain, what is required through Eagle, the county. It's very complex, and so that's why there are so many items. I don't have an issue with the project moving forward. All of these details will be worked out administratively, but did want to give you some background as far as how the project's moving along.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Any questions for Leslie? All right, the applicant is here. Come on up.
Do you need help pushing that up? Is there a big green play button on your screen? You've been here too often, John. Yeah.
He knows how to do it better than we do.
All right. I'll make this go full screen.
You can go up to view. Third from the bottom option. Up to the left.
Oh, wait. Display size.
Down. Two down.
Two more.
There we go. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Ackerman with Atwell, 2 Town Square, Southfield, Michigan, 48076. Brian kind of took a lot of the thunder kind of walking through everything, but I'll give you kind of a summary of everything that's been going on with the Walbridge property. So everything you see in yellow is the entire holdings for Walbridge. It's about 350 acres total in size. 500 acres total in size, excuse me. East of South Hill Road, the area in red, the South Hill Business Park was the first project that we endeavored on about 3 years ago now. That is done, it's paved, it's in, it's 10 industrial business units, it's a site condominium, and Walbridge is actively marketing that right now. That was the kind of the first project we did, and it's kind of unique because of the 90-ish acres of property you had on that, you can only build out about half of it. The southern half of that you can see is all the wooded wetland complex. So these parcels that are on this property are relatively small for industrial buildings, so to speak. Though you can market, 40,000 to maybe just under 100,000 square foot of buildings per each of the units. Maybe combine a few. We'll see how it goes. We're having lots of discussions. But they're actively marketing that as we speak. Then we came in with what we call LDC1, which stands for Lion Distribution Center 1, and was originally brought forward to you as a spec building. It has now been leased out to Webasto, and they're very close to opening. We got to dot a couple I's and cross a couple T's to get where we need to be, but it's close. And so that project is nearing completion. Next up was LDC2, which was also designed and entitled as a speculative building. It's about 150,000 square feet, and they are about to kick off any... Broke ground Monday. Okay, broke ground on Monday. So they're starting to go vertical out there. There's interest in the building. Nothing signed up as far as leases yet goes, but that building will be up in 2022. So when we started looking at the remainder of this site, we have the area north of the New Hudson Drain, which is the Walbridge Yard, and then we have this remainder 290-acre parcel. And as part, I guess I should circle back, I know Leslie touched on the drain. You can see from this point right here that the dashed line, the thick dashed line all the way across up to this point is about 1.2 miles of drain. All of that has been, at Walbridge's expense, has been restored to historic conditions. In some areas, almost 15 feet of silt has been. There are 12-inch trees growing. That's how long it's been lapsed as far as maintenance goes. So all of that has been improved, and it twofold. One, giving that additional volume helps with what Leslie alluded to, your floodplain issues in the area. And as we start to move forward, you can see, and it's a little bit more difficult to see, but this right here is the center line for the remainder of the drain. That has not been improved yet. That whole area up there is also where your southwest leg of your bypass is going to go. There's multiple crossings of that drain. That drain sits about maybe in some areas 10 feet higher than the base of the drain that's been prepared to date. So there's been a lot of hand-holding and a lot of conversations with going all the way up to the state level about what we can do, how we can handle this to try and get this through, both from a private and a public perspective. So we came up with the layout plan for the South Hill Business Park West. And it's comprised of 7 parcels. As Brian kind of mentioned, parcel 1, we've already prepared another speculative building for that site. It's a little over 400,000 square feet, appropriately called LDC 3. And marketing geniuses. So that will be in front of you next week at the Planning Commission level, and then hopefully we'll board the following month. One thing that wasn't mentioned is a line. If you bring a line basically right kind of down like that, that is your wellhead protection zone. So anything east of that line has to go through a special land use. Anything west does not. So basically parcels 1, 3, and 4 all fall within it. We line this up so parcel 2 does not fall within that. So that was one of the key criteria to taking a look at everything. As Brian mentioned, we've been kind of looking at this site for a while, figuring out what we want to do, having a lot of conversations with Leslie's team, figuring out how we handle stormwater. There's some complexities with stormwater on this site. There's 2 management districts, one to the north, one to the south. And then there's the drain issue. And what we proposed is, in lieu of trying to improve the drain up to the north and all the headache that comes with it, candidly, Walbridge is donating a 100-foot wide easement across their property, and this is going to be a new extension of the drain, a bypass, if you will. It's going to be the same kind of profile of the drain that's already been improved, and it's going to connect into the existing drain just east of the rails. I always forget the name of that path right there.
Huron Valley Trail.
There you go, Huron Valley Trail. And then from there, improvements under Milford Road and past the airport and on. So lots of conversations, lots of emails, lots of back and forth trying to figure out how to get to the finish line on that. But Walbridge has proposed and is paying for the dedication of this property and the improvements of the drain to the north. The other thing that Walbridge really wanted to do is make sure that there was the opportunity to put up to like a 1.2 million square foot building on this property. And we had a lot of discussions with the township about it, and the township's main request was bury it. We want to see, in the middle of the site. We don't want it up on a property line. Let's get it centrally located in the middle of the site. So we started talking, and combined with that, they really did not want to see a vehicular connection from South Hill all the way out to Milford, because they did not want to introduce all that additional industrial traffic out onto Milford Road, wanted to try and keep a majority of it to the east. So this was kind of the concept we came up with. You have 4 primary parcels that are going to be fronting on Ambassador Parkway West, all utilizing South Hill up to Grand River and east from there. Then we'll have 3 individual parcels fronting on Milford Road. Each one of those will not have access to the east. They will all front on, all that traffic will go on to Milford. We're currently in the process of preparing a traffic study to generate kind of some of the, identify any additional improvements for Milford at this time. We intend to dedicate the road, the right-of-way required for Milford Road. While it's not reflected on this plan and the plan set, we will be providing a 10-foot path along the frontage of Milford Road, and we will be doing landscaping along there as well. We didn't give you a landscape plan at this point because we just don't know what's going to go there. So those will come in with the individual site plans for those parcels. What we did give you the landscape for was along South Hill Road. Now, in addition to the 7 parcels, we have 3 regional basins, stormwater basins, that are going to be part of the overall association, but not owned or not sitting on any one of the individual parcels. So that basin that you see between South Hill and Parcel 1 will sit on an open area. That's part of the overall association, will be maintained by the association, but it's not part of Parcel 1. That's about it, really. Let me touch on wetlands as well. So, yeah, there's about a little over an acre of wetland impact on this site. The wetlands that are regulated, you have a significant wetland complex down on, I mean, everyone knows South Hill floods out. There's a significant wetland complex down in that southeast corner. There's a couple other internal pocket wetlands, but the only other wetlands that are regulated are a small wetland that's right here because in definition of regulation, it has to fall within 500 feet of a county drain or be significant in size. The only trigger for anything on here is the relationship to the open water. So you have one small wetland here, and then you have actually a couple small wetlands along the southern property line that are regulated. We are proposing impacting 2 wetland parcels up here, and that's where a majority of that 1.3 acres comes from, but both of those are non-regulated. And we submitted I gave it to you a little bit late, but we gave you a detailed report summarizing the regulatory status for all the wetlands on the site. There are trees on the site as well. A majority of the trees are being impacted by the construction of that center regional stormwater basin, and then also the construction of the bypass drain. As far as phasing goes, it's kind of up in the air right now. Obviously, LDC 1 is part of phase 1. We were considering the 3 parcels right here. The eastern 3 parcels is kind of phase 1. Parcel 2 in the middle would kind of be phase 2, and then the remaining parcels on the west are phase 3. But honestly, it just depends on who wants what parcel. I mean, it's a marketing thing. So we've had some interest for parcel 2 for something significant there. We'll see where it goes. That's all I have for you. So any questions?
Okay, John, thank you. We're going to open it up for questions. So anyone like to start?
I had a quick question,
Go ahead.
John. I don't have an issue with the layout necessarily. I think it's good to keep I think what will be the majority of traffic. Well, it depends on the user, but the majority of the parcels will go to South Hill where there's a traffic light at Grand River. Had there been any thought about maybe at least creating an easement along the east side of parcel 2, between parcel 1 and parcel 2, running north kind of to the basin? I mean, you're going to have to access a basin anyway, but at least an easement so that if a future road connection could be made north through the other Wallbridge property that has frontage on Grand River now, just so the easement was there. Place it there, don't build the road, just so that way, a loop could be made.
No. Candidly, no, we have not. In our opinion, there's no need or no desire to put a road crossing because you're crossing the drain. The Wallbridge yard on the north side, Wallbridge has no intent of selling those buildings. So ultimately, there's going to be another smaller development. There's about 35 acres or so of property here. That ultimately that's primary great frontage on Grand River. So there's going to be someone's going to come in and want to take that property up and develop it. It'll be an industrial use, we anticipate. No idea at this time, it's not part of this process, but we know, candidly, I knew that question was going to be asked because it got asked across the street on the other side. So, but no, internally, we didn't have any thoughts or desires to put that in. We just didn't think it was warranted because it's never going to get built.
Yeah, I think I would never say never, but how do you intend to serve that detention basin? Like, where will you access that from for maintenance purposes?
Parcel 2.
So there'll be an easement at least to access?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, I think we want the majority of traffic to go to the light at South Hill. There's not going to be a light. I mean, we wouldn't want a light in front of this property. It would never get never say never.
Yeah,
I almost said never. It probably wouldn't get approved that close to South Hill anyway. So, I mean, it's tough to know what kind of traffic, both of our volume and type of traffic would go through here, but I just was curious, so. I don't really have a whole lot else at this point.
Chris?
Yeah, I guess I was kind of echoing Sean's comments, and I've been going back and forth on this particular layout and development. Like, Looking at the master plan, it is in our township master plan, there is a connection from South Hill to Milford Road. So that's one of the things that kind of sticks with me on this one. But I'm going through some of the stuff that you've proposed on the site in terms of assisting with the new Hudson Drain, and I know a lot of that is self-serving, but it also does help with the township ring road. So I do like that you're kind of going above and beyond with that respect. The way it's laid out too, you do have 4 parcels going east, 3 to the west. I guess you are dividing up the traffic, even though it is not a through road. The comment on wetlands too, I'm okay with having the wetlands in the industrial lots as long as the site plans go through and kind of respect that on the ones that are, I think, on the south end. Obviously, the tree impacts for parcel 2 for that detention basin are serving the purpose of flood control and also with the new Hudson Drain. And a question on that for maybe Brian is how does that impact in terms of replacement trees for those that are coming down on, I think, does that happen with this or does that happen when parcel 2's developed? Is this pond going in now or is the pond going in with parcel 2?
I can tell you the pond will need to go in with the road itself. The road itself, I mean, this is such a mammoth piece of property, so it's kind of, you need to get water from this point to this point, and it has to go via gravity, right? So when you have such a distance, your pipes are coming out of the ground. So that's why when we first started looking at this, that eastern basin on South Hill Road wasn't even proposed, and we realized we just couldn't get the stormwater to that other basin. So there's the on-site districts between those 2 basins are kind of combined. So when Ambassador Parkway is built, both of those detention basins will need to be constructed with it.
Okay.
In terms of the tree preservation ordinance, any detention facilities or roads or required easements or things like that are all exempt from any replacement. So the removal of those trees to create those detention basins is permitted.
All right. And then I think lastly, we had, in Brian's report, the pathway width of 8 feet, which seems to be consistent with the property to the north. I'm okay with reducing that and then adding a contribution to the sidewalk fund for the boardwalk going south would be, I think, appropriate in this case, especially considering the previous agenda item where we may be looking at trying to make some connections to a future facility. So I believe, Leslie, you do those cost estimates. So that's all I have.
Okay.
John,
Go ahead.
Normally I would not be much of a fan of a length of cul-de-sac that long, but I think that you make a really important argument for the need for that. I would really hate to have that connected to Milford Road, so I'm comfortable with that. And also, how much wider is that you would be able to have, if one part of that was blocked, you'd be able to have emergency vehicles bypass that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, a standard, and again, this is going to be a public road that will be maintained by the county. Your standard road width is 27 feet back to back, so this is 9 extra feet.
Okay. And then to kind of look, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do, when I look to the south, there's the Coyote Golf Club, and eventually I would assume that at some point that's not going to stay as a golf course for long. So I'm looking at the possibility of sidewalks. I know that you're not looking to connect all the way to the southern portion because of the wetlands, and you're looking to make a connection or a contribution. Would there be a sidewalk that goes along that internal? Is there a sidewalk on either side of that?
Both sides.
On both sides?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then-
5-foot concrete sidewalk will wrap around the cul-de-sac.
Okay. And then my next question is, could you, when you do have, or would you be willing to consider that when you do have a person coming in for parcel 2, like, is there a way that you could, you know how we do stub roads? I mean, Sean, you're always about connecting subdivisions to subdivisions. Is there a thought process that eventually, if there is a subdivision that is, or a planned development that's in Coyote, that they could perhaps connect to a sidewalk that is somewhere on parcel 2? Now, of course, I know you would never know exactly where that would be, but would you have that in your thought process, that maybe eventually there could be a sidewalk that would go to the southern property line that would allow perhaps a sidewalk that would come from Coyote eventually to somehow connect? Or just find a way that the people who would eventually live in a subdivision there would be able to get to the path that is along South Hill Road?
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Isn't there going to be a pathway extended all the way down Milford Road?
Yes.
That's
Yes,
what
but
the other east.
if you were to go to the east, there's already the path on South Hill Road. So I'm just, like I said, I mean, I'm kind of looking at, you know, the future of where perhaps, I'm not asking you to construct a sidewalk on parcel 2, you know, for that purpose, but just, I'm asking if it's possible that you could have that in the back of your head, that whenever that parcel were to be designed, have that as a possibility.
Sure.
That we
Yeah.
could, I mean, maybe it would never come to pass, but it would be better than, you know, somebody just having to walk 15 feet across the grass just to get to the parking lot on parcel 2, to get to the sidewalks that are on that cul-de-sac.
What I don't know, and well, you know, depending on the use, there's, you know, being an industrial use, there's security, it could be fenced, you know,
Sure.
so there's denominators we don't know about yet, but
Right.
absolutely we'll entertain that
But
as we're
even-
moving forward.
You know, even if it were along the property line of being able to, like, have the fence a little bit offset that property line and be able to go up a little bit to the east and then somehow connect that way.
We'll
And-
have to, yeah, there's definitely, we can talk, I mean, liability, there's a lot of things that come into play, but yeah, we absolutely can, we'll entertain it and figure something out.
Right.
Take a
Okay,
look at it.
And if it can't happen, I completely understand it, but I
Mhm.
just keep looking at, like, God, we're always so close to being able to have somebody go from point A to point B, and those are the only questions I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Robert? anything?
I think most of the things have been touched on at this
Okay.
point. It's-
Michelle?
Fine. I'm fine with it.
Okay, I just want to say one thing. I want to thank Walbridge for the ditching that they've done. It has been a tremendous addition to the flooding of our downtown, and I hear self-serving, I hear that, but I'm going to tell you something, it's really drained our downtown, and it's something that we, as a township, could not afford to do. It was huge, and I think the bypass is a great idea, and I also think throwing $250,000 to fix Milford Road to get that under is another added benefit. And I do want to thank Walbridge for being partners in that. The other thing I look at is, boy, you take 300 and some odd acres and turn it into 7 parcels. That's amazing. That's amazing. That could be cut up into a lot of things, a lot less. I wasn't part of the meetings when we were talking about putting that in the middle, but I think it's a great idea. I mean, to put a building that large in the center to kind of hide that from the others, I think that's a wonderful idea. And I love the big Boulevard Road that comes in and out and keeps everybody going to the east and not coming out of Milford Road. We already know we have plenty of traffic there. So I like everything about it. I think it's a great piece for this. And let's face it, Walbridge has been looking at things forever to put on there. I remember back in the day of the testing facility that was going to take the whole place up, you know, and I think it's a good plan, and I think it's a big plus to our township to get this kind of growth in this type of region. That's lots of good things for our residents. I mean, it's good pays, it's keeping their workers here, they don't have to travel with $7 gas. You know, so I mean, it's amazing that we can maybe keep a community work and live. So I like it.
I had one more question, and we're just looking at an arrangement here, but obviously the airport, which we haven't talked about in great detail, is right across the road, and it looks like Basin C is immediately opposite the runway, or roughly. So parcel 5 is going to be, and both basins and parcel 5 will be right in the flight path, so obviously that's going to impact the kind of building height you know, you're dealing with. Do you have concerns? Have you talked to the airport or?
Yeah, I was going to say, yes, and this came, I don't know if you recall, I think you were on the planning commission, when we did Parkside Village, the residential development there across from Continental, we engaged in conversations with them, and there was some waterfowl, concerns. So there are, there's Oakland County requirements for how we design the ponds themselves. We'll have to figure all that out, but Walbridge has already opened up and had some discussions with them about building heights and concerns. There is a overlay district that lays out that, as far as the runway protection zone is what it's called. We've kind of overlaid that. It does not hit our site, but they still do have concerns about the location of that detention basin, and we do have to have, we're continuing those conversations with them.
The protection zone goes through Basin C,
Yeah.
basically. And even if you had to move the building on that parcel 5 to the south side to get further away from it, you can maneuver it. And I know a bigger issue for them, the FAA and the airport, is having people living in those areas.
Correct.
And it's less of an issue, for example,
Industrial.
storage or industrial, where there aren't many people there at any given time. And so I think this kind of use would line up better from that perspective.
When we went through this historically, I learned the term avigation rights, and no idea that existed, where they want to own the property above your house, and the developer at the time was being asked to put that actually in the condo docs and the bylaws that they can't call and complain about air traffic above their house.
Right, yeah.
Both, right, there you go. So yeah, it's a whole new, it's new folks over there, but Adorno with Walbridge has started those conversations, and we'll continue them once we get into the detailed engineering.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions?
One more thing on the drain bypass. So that will actually be excavated, not just an easement granted, or
Correct.
Just okay.
The physical drain will be constructed
And
by
then,
Walbridge.
I'm sure you guys have thought through this, but if the existing drain portion isn't significantly cleaned out, what's to stop all of the silt that's built up there from drifting back into your new bypass and the portion you've just finished cleaning out?
We'll have control structures built because Eagle wants to still see flow going through the existing drain, because there is a habitat that exists there, so they want to protect that. So we are working with Apple to design control structures, which we're not to that point yet.
Okay. All right, just as long as it's on the radar.
Yep, it is. Yeah, that's one of the million things we have to figure out.
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you.
Okay. Any others? Motion would be in order.
I'll move the approval of AP 22-02, South Hill Business Park West, subject to all the comments found in the review letters for the project. And I don't know, do we need to make a finding on the pathway contribution?
No, it's referenced in the review letters.
Okay. Then that's that.
I'll support.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, guys. All right, we're going to move on to the appointment of the Mrs. Getzey to the DDA board to make our 9th member, and I would like to make the motion to appoint her because we all met her. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. She'll make a good one.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to the Robertson Homes Brownfield Authority request for Hudson Towns. Who wants to bring that? Is anything, just want to bring the presentation up, or?
I'm going to ask for a Brian assist, if I may. Because of the nature of the material, it may be easy to look on a handout as opposed to look at the screen. They're small numbers, so.
We may have them.
You know what? We've updated it and added some things, so if you'll toss that one out and use the one that we're handing out right now.
Got you. Did you get one to April too for the main packet? Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Great. So what am I, just page up, page down?
That's easy, right?
Yeah, good. My name's Jim Clark. I'm president of Robertson Brothers Company, 6905 Telegraph Road, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. I have here with me tonight Richard Barr from Honigman Miller. Richard is one of the preeminent brownfield authorities and attorneys in the field, and also Doug McDowell, who does the environmental work for McDowell and Associates. So I will do the fluff, and they can do the stuff. So I'm delighted to be here. This is one of the most exciting projects Robertson Brothers has in its future projects or potential future projects. I'd like to take a moment and explain what our request is, and then open this up for question and answer tonight. This is a product type that Robertson Brothers has been very successful in developing. It's something that I think was envisioned in your hamlet, and this township board gave us approval, and so did the Planning Commission. So we're at a point where we are literally ready to go with a project, and we're here to explain to you, maybe not complain, but explain and ask your careful consideration for a economic tool that is used in many industrial areas where you're converting industrial toxic sites into new residential. So we're asking for a level playing field for an environmental concern. So when I was here, I'm standing in for Tim Loughran tonight, but when I was here for my initial presentation in front of the Planning Commission, there was a question from Carol Rosati that said, is this a project that you will move forward with without a brownfield? We hadn't done any of our due diligence, but my immediate response was I felt it would be a very challenged project without the help of some type of brownfield. So not that makes it any more interesting to any of you, but it is a consistency that we have had since the beginning of this, and we've moved forward through the process with getting all our approvals. As I said, we're delighted to be here. We're very excited about the project. We're ready to spend $7,100,000 to get this project to a point where we could open a sales office. It's not an inexpensive project with the tap fees, which is a level playing field here in South Lyon. It also has a. I just said South Lyon, and I really apologize. You can
go sit down.
I'll let every one of you slap me on the hand or something. So that is a supreme apology. Now I've knocked myself off my track.
You realized it, though.
Robertson Brothers, as I said, have done this in seven other communities. And the buyer profile that you envisioned in your hamlet and the buyer profile we're going for and what we have designed for is the missing middle. It's a buyer profile that I don't believe exists in a for sale opportunity in Lyon Township at this time. See, I did that one right. So what we know is it's a very price sensitive buyer profile, and to be successful, we feel it's very important these are not cheap homes, but they are starter homes for 90% of the people we're building for in these other 7 communities. So we know the buyer profile. It's, in our opinion, going to be very challenged to raise the price of those homes $10,000 in cost and $20,000 in sales price and be successful after spending that $7 million without the ability to repay ourselves back for an environmental issue that we did not create and 2 generations ago didn't create. It is something that's existed for the 3 prior uses on this site, and we don't have the time, money, or effort to go back and sue people before there were regulations on I don't know if it's a number 1 carcinogenic, but it is a carcinogenic that needs to be taken out of the soil. So we're looking to be put on even playing field with a greenfield site, which is what happens when you take industrial property and you reuse it. It's why the state said, let's have this brownfield, and I know you haven't used it, but many communities use it when they want to convert industrial to residential. Buyers are going to pay you more for granite, they'll pay you more for marble, they'll pay you more for crown molding and doors, but when you say, I'm just going to give you a house that doesn't give you cancer, that's not a value that we can just send through the process. So it's not a developer handout. It puts the project back on even footing as if we were building on something that had no environmental. So I'm going to go back to our handout and go through a few of what we think are the benefits of, or the potential benefits of the proposal. But Robertson Brothers has looked very hard at this, and we've looked hard with McDowell and Associates. The easiest, not easiest, but the most sloppy way to do this would be just start digging and taking truckloads of dirt off. We're not proposing to do that. We're proposing to be as cost-effective as we can with this brownfield and bring in a testing lab and test every piece of soil as we dig it up so that we can minimize the cost to both ourselves and to the overall capture of the taxes from the brownfield. So it's our belief, based upon other projects that we have, that if we could get started on this, we would be in a position to sell 2.5 to 3 units a month. So it would be about a 2.5-year project. We are literally ready to go with, second engineering comments in hand. The business just keeps getting easier with gas prices increasing, material price increases. I think we're going to have a slowdown in the market. That isn't something that we want to stop with. We're ready to go on this, but I do think there is uncertainty in the market, and so our request for you today is for a brownfield to handle those extraordinary costs. The experts will get into this a little more, but I don't want to say the game because that sounds like we're gaming something, but the idea in a brownfield is you want to make sure you're covering your costs so you estimate high because you only receive reimbursement for the exact dollars you spend. And Oakland County is out there on site, and we would welcome anyone else and pay for anyone else to make sure that we're not profiteering on this. This is money we won't receive for 5 or 10 years, so there's no interest on it. It's us spending dollars up front, part of that $7.1 million, to create taxable value for your DDA and for your community. So right now, that property is generating about $5,000 in taxes. When we're done, hopefully in 2.5, 3 years, there'll be $570,000 worth of capture. And what I'm excited about, and I've talked to Patty and I've talked to some other people on the Planning Commission, is we feel very strongly that this is a project that should go forward and go forward quickly, and will be highly successful introducing that first-time buyer to Lyon Township. So now that I've danced around my entire presentation and haven't looked at anything, you certainly know where the property is because you've approved it for moving forward, but for our interjecting this brownfield, although we did speak about it on our first meeting. So, it will generate 94 new taxpayers, 470 in total annual taxes, equals 186,000 in new DDA dollars. The project is, it's all along Lyon Center Drive, so we have a lot of landscaping that we'll put in, and I think it'll reset that Lyon Center Drive as a new residential neighborhood. Right now it reads as an industrial. We're backed by industrial, we're fronted by industrial, we're southern end is industrial. You just approved additional industrial. We're looking to put a residential stamp on your new Hudson project with a little help from you. It is very walkable. It will be walkable down Lyon Center Drive, and we're right off the rails to trail. Once again, some concepts, some pictures of what we will accomplish, a context of where the project is, some of the building designs that we showed you before, and I'm going to, I guess, defer to Doug McDowell, who I will get up here. We have exceedances on both the groundwater and on the soil for anyone to develop the site. So if we go away and somebody says, I'm going to bring in an industrial building and it'll be a lot easier to develop because it's not a residential standard, that's not true. Doug will get into this, but both residential and commercial exceeded in the amount of contamination in the site. So these are 2 slides on that. I'm going to let Doug walk through this with you. But basically, we're looking to bring you approximately $500,000 worth of new taxes and capture some of those in the short term. As I've spoken to some people in the past, we're not looking to rake the table and profiteer on this. This does not, we still have to pay all of the standard roads, water, and sewer that we'd spend on any development. This is extraordinary cost over and above that. We will front all those costs, and we will receive no interest on those costs, so we will sit on those costs. We'll raise equity from outside investors, and they will wait for 5 to 7 years to get a return on that money. So it is, I'm not looking to have you feel sorry for us, but it is a way to bring this project together. And as I've said to the DDA, and I've said to certain not council members, but certain other people I've talked to, Robertson Brothers is willing to work with the township on some way to get some help on a very toxic site that needs to be cleaned up and converted to residential. Let me make sure. The current taxable value is $123,000. The future taxable value at 50% of the build-out development would be $14,109,000, and then some breakdown of the captured taxes. So I guess with that, I'll let Doug and Richard get up and answer questions, and I'll certainly feel free to interrupt and interject. But we are asking you tonight, we've met with the DDA. It's not a DDA issue. It's this commission's purview whether to move forward with this, although the dollars are currently being captured by the DDA, and it is our belief that we would have DDA support, although we haven't taken a vote. We have presented in both Brad Hansen presented at both DDA and I believe at this board also. So thank you very much. Any questions for me before I sit?
I don't think so far.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Doug McDowell with McDowell & Associates. I'm Vice President, 21355 Hatcher Avenue, Ferndale. I'll start with the fourth page in your packet there, if you want to turn to that. That's the groundwater table. Each of the yellow boxes are highlights of locations where tetrachloroethylene, or also called tetrachloroethene, also called perchloroethylene. It's a compound that's a carcinogen. It's a compound that has some pretty severe effects on humans, and it's not a good compound to leave laying around. In this situation, we know the contamination that was in the soil has reached the groundwater, and here we have in yellow the highlights that are locations of concern. You'll notice there's kind of sporadically scattered about that dotted line box. They're not connected, and these are also very low-level contaminants from a perspective of you can't see it or smell it, but they still do exceed non-residential standards, both for drinking water and if groundwater is in contact or within 5 feet of a slab or a basement. So one of the advantages to Robertson Brothers' plan is their product is a slab-on-grade structure, which puts us up away from that groundwater. With the next slide, so it's the back side of the page if you're with me. This shows soil contamination. One of the things we added to this slide, which was different from our earlier discussion with the board, and it was in response to Leslie's question, are there other standards besides residential? There is a non-residential standard in the state of Michigan. You'll see here that's 74 micrograms per kilogram or parts per billion. Each of the soil levels that we have that exceed the residential standard also exceed the non-residential standard. So in the event this site were considered for something other than residential, there would still be an issue for a non-residential or industrial user. They would have to address or mitigate this contamination in the soil in one way or the other. In terms of remedial approach, our plan is to use a mobile laboratory, as Jim has mentioned to you, and I kind of want to describe our thought process there. Again, if you look here on the soil numbers, you'll see clean locations scattered within the polygon there. We don't think we have one continuous release that's made all of this soil contaminated. We think we have pockets of contamination, and so in order to do this cleanup, what we want to try to do is separate clean from contaminated, so we're not hauling all of the soil to a landfill, but rather a component of that. And we would stockpile clean soil during that process. In order to use a laboratory that is miles away, We would have to transport the samples. Typically, the turnaround, if we did rush testing, which doubles the cost, would be a two-day turnaround. By having an on-site laboratory, we can get a result within an hour. The handling is easier, the turnaround time is easier, and we can then use that to actually do more sampling and testing than we would if we were using a laboratory that we were hauling samples to. So it allows us to pare down the remedial cost. We've compared the cost of the on-site laboratory to a fixed laboratory that we would convey samples to. It's roughly $70,000 for the on-site lab, $120,000 maybe for the laboratory that we'd be hauling to. So there's cost savings just directly with the use of the on-site lab. Another place we think we save is we can finish this cleanup, we believe, in roughly 4 weeks if we use the on-site lab. If we're using a laboratory that's miles away, it's closer to 8 weeks. And so there's 2 to 4 weeks of equipment downtime that the project would not incur if we can use the on-site laboratory. So there's significant advantages to using the on-site lab, and we believe that's the best way to handle this. The cost estimate you've received in the $1.5 million or so to address this contamination assumes everything within this polygon is contaminated down to the groundwater table, and that there's some groundwater that has to be remediated as well. I think it's probably a good amount less than that. The cost to figure that out or to estimate it would be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that really the most cost-effective way to address this question is to clean it up, sample and test as we go, stockpile, clean, and move forward. That's all I have for the environmental component. Any questions before I pass to Richard? Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Okay. No?
Good evening. My name is Richard Barr. I'm an attorney at the Honigman firm, and I've been practicing in the brownfield area for longer than I can remember, I think. And I say that because this program has evolved greatly in the 27 years since the legislature enacted it in 1995. And it's been used much more extensively in the last 5 or 10 years to level the playing field. It was originally enacted by the legislature at the urging of the Urban Core Mayors Group back in 1995, when they said we're tired of our gas stations being abandoned, our dry cleaners being abandoned, and Main Street being abandoned. We want to bring people back into the core cities. So that's why the Urban Core Mayors got the legislature to enact the law, and was used largely by well-developed communities from 1995 for about 10 or 15 years. And then the word spread that it's good not just in downtown Detroit and downtown Grand Rapids and downtown everywhere, but it's good in other communities where you have anywhere from chlorinateds, from the old typical light industrial facilities that had parts cleaners or had solvents or were actually dry cleaning facilities, as well as corner gas stations that can be just as well at Grand River and Milford Road as they can be at Grand River and Woodward Avenue in Detroit. So word got out, and Oakland County had the initiative of forming a county brownfield authority, which has assisted many local communities that did not yet have their own brownfield authority. Some of those communities have gone on to adopt their own brownfield authority, and some continue to use the county. And I understand Brad Hansen has spoken to you. I know he's spoken to the DDA and explained generally how they do it. And it's a great resource because it takes the load off of the township while still allowing the township to be involved as much as they want to be involved. So they run the program. We've been dealing with Mary Ritchie, the Equalization Department, her staff. They've already scrubbed all the projections through multiple rounds of scrubbing. I can assure you they are the most detailed reviewer in the state of Michigan. I've had more than one draft of the tables that have been handed out to you, and there probably will be another one before we're all done. There's always an assumption you can modify when you work on these projects. But the purpose of the program, as Jim said, is to level the playing field, and to take a property that people have ignored or looked over or walked away from negotiated purchase agreements, as the case is here, and finally get it back in the tax rolls. So right now, the total taxes for all the taxing units on this property are about $5,000 a year. And as Jim indicated, by around year 8, it would be over $400,000 a year. So if the property stays off the tax roll for just a few more years, the township has lost the opportunity for another few years to finally turn this into something more than a $5,000 a year tax generator. And if it's just a dollars and cents issue, that's a compelling argument. but it's also an environmental health issue. And as Doug mentioned, the levels that are in the soil exceed the levels that the Eagle will find acceptable to be redeveloped without having to spend money on something. And lately, and I can tell you this from battle scars, Eagle has gotten incredibly concerned about what's called vapor intrusion, the ability of volatile chemicals such as chlorinateds to be underneath a building or near a building and infiltrate the building. And we can argue all day, and we do argue all day with the assumptions that Eagle and the EPA use, but at the end of the day, the standard of practice now is to deal with it. Don't try to cover it up. Don't try to build a vapor barrier and spend $10,000 a year monitoring it. Don't try to do a cheap approach where 94 future taxpayers call your office and say, why am I running this treatment system all day? Why do I have a fan running, kind of like a radon fan? Couldn't we have gotten it done right up front and not have 94 people who are calling every year saying, why am I running this system, running electricity? So what Robertson wants to do is do it right the first time. Now, Doug has proposed a high-end price. And there's one thing that Doug is consistent with is being conservative with his numbers. And we always say to Doug, come on, Doug, you're fluffing the numbers. No, I've seen it go wrong. I've seen assumptions be proven to be too conservative or too liberal in that case. So we have a high-end budget. And on table 1, I'm not sure you got this handout at this point, but Doug listed and I presented the amount of soils and tonnage which we guesstimate based on all the data that's out there. And you can see there are dozens and dozens of samples already, but they're not every foot. They might be 5 feet apart or 10 feet apart, and you're not really sure what is between the dots. So as an assumption of, for example, 23,400 tons of soil to have to be removed and taken to a landfill, we sure as heck hope that it turns out to be 5,000 or 10,000. And with the mobile lab that Doug described, that will bring the cost down dramatically. And Jim Clark, if he's nothing else, is going to make sure that he's not going to spend an extra $100,000 running trucks up and down Grand Avenue for no reason at all. The goal here and the motivation is to spend no more than is necessary, but everything that's necessary to protect public health and prevent the township from getting calls from future homeowners saying, what happened over here and why did we miss the opportunity to do it right? So what's proposed here is a do-it-right solution that results in an unusually short brownfield plan. Under the brownfield law, you're allowed to have capture for 30 years. This plan projects that it's over within 7 years, plus 1 additional year to complete the revolving fund that the county sets up as part of the brownfield plan. 7 years is almost the shortest plan I've ever seen. I had one shorter than that ended in about 5 years in Plymouth Township a long time ago. This would be one of the shortest I've ever seen, and I'm confident that it could be shorter. Because if Doug comes through and comes back and says, I estimated $1.5 million, it turned out to be $1.2 million, this is over with a year to 2 earlier than even we're projecting at 7 to 8 years. So the goal is to get rid of the things that are in yellow, get rid of the issues that bring headaches later and bring people saying, oh my God, it's another Gelman science, it's another groundwater plume, and all the stuff that can get blown up in the internet, blown up on Facebook, blown up everywhere, when it isn't really warranting that kind of concern, and not have a stigma on this property that has kept people from transacting it, kept them from redeveloping this for years and years and years. The one thing that's also good about Oakland County's involvement is they bird dog this. They will hire their own consultant, and they will make sure that the requests that go in are appropriate. Eagle has to approve the work plan. We've already started talking to them about the scope of the work. They're intrigued by the mobile lab idea. They said it's a great idea. Tell us why it makes sense. We've given them numbers to show why it makes sense. And they will monitor, and they often come out on site to have a day out of the office, or these days have a day out of the home basement where they're still working. And they'll be out there, and Oakland County will be monitoring the costs, and the township certainly can be involved as much as it wants to or wants not to be involved in the process. So our goal is to have you ask good questions tonight. You haven't asked any yet, but I hope a few are coming. And at the appropriate time, to consider approving the resolutions of Oakland County once, because under the brownfield law, if they're going to approve the plan, they need you to pass a resolution deferring to them the authority to do that. They will scrub the plan, and I can assure you that they scrub it well, and their brownfield authority is thorough. I've been grilled there before. It's like being in moot court. They have environmental lawyers on their Brownfield Authority, and they have engineers on their Brownfield Authority, and they put me through moot court every time I go before them and get quizzed. So you would be in good hands if you partner with Oakland County and with Robertson, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or talk all night if you prefer. But thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions, and moot court, bring them on. Happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we can start the conversation, I think.
Yeah.
Patty's got some.
I kind of want to, I want to start out because I want to educate the board about really what the DDA has, because it's actually the DDA that's losing the money. And I disagree with you. It's going to actually, if it is $1.5 million, it's going to be, the payback's going to take 7 years to pay back, and by the time they recoup the $1.5 million back to the coffers, that's another 8 years. So it's a 15-year process, basically, at $1.5 million. So, but I want to educate you about, well...
Sorry, can you
Yeah.
clarify that part
So
about why it's 15?
So how the process starts is they're going to go forward and actually clean up the property, right? So just hypothetically, let's use their number, $1.5 million. We collect the taxes and give that to Oakland County, that gives it back to Robertson Brothers over approximately, it should take about 7 years as the property appreciates, okay? Then, in order for, because the DDA will lose that money. We've already lost the money to the DDA. So the DDA, in order for them to just gain back the $1.5 million, will take another 8 years. So it's 7 years, it's 15-year process, okay? So that's what that is. So, but I want to educate you about the DDA, because they still have a lot of debt out there that I think maybe the board doesn't realize for the 2 ring roads that are already there. They still owe $7 million on the 2 ring roads that are already in the process to 2029. We collect, or the DDA has collected, or has been promised by the county to collect $17 million in DDA, in their taxes to the DDA. So we've had that agreement since 2010, I think. So we have collected, the DDA has collected already $11 million of that $17 million. So they have $6 million left. That $6 million doesn't even pay, or isn't enough to even take care of the 2 existing ring road debts that we have. The last leg of the ring road, I think Leslie estimated to be $8 to $10 million, basically, roughly, is what I heard.
The drain improvements and,
right.
You know, I don't even have a final estimate.
So that's another debt that they're going to have to incur. And then, so the DDA collects from our dollar amount, it's about $1 million. So they collect about roughly $2 million a year. They roughly get $1 million from the county. That's going to end. We have a dollar amount, unless we can negotiate with the county to increase that. So I just, in my own opinion, I can't see giving away $1.5 million when we are working on the last leg of the ring road. And I think people have to remember that we're still responsible. If anything happens to the DDA, we have to pay that debt out of the township coffers. I mean, we have a nice cushion, but you know how I'm always grumpy at, you know, I don't like to give away a lot of our money, our property, because we have a lot more debt than people think we have. And if the downturn comes back and the DDA, you know, the DDA went backwards in their dollar amount 3 years in a row. So, I mean, when the DDAs first started capturing their dollars, it was like $238,000 a year. They're up to 800, almost 900,000 now, because of the growth on the Grand River Corridor and what's happened in the DDA. But you've got to understand, you're giving away $1.5 million, you're not recouping it for 8 more years after we've paid them back. And why is it our residents' fault? Why is that for us to pay that? I just can't overcome that feeling of our residents didn't, or our taxpayers, or the other businesses in the township that built on their property they are the ones that we're actually collecting the dollars from. I mean, it's mostly businesses. But I have a big issue with it, and I just don't think that maybe the board actually know. And they have $5 million in the bank. The DDA does right now. But still, you got to understand, they have a lot of projects. They have property acquisitions with that last ring road. They have a lot of projects that are going forward. I know to them it's like $1.5 million, but that's a private, they're going to make a profit. That's they wouldn't have picked that property if they didn't think they could make a profit, which I love the project. I talked to Jim Clark today for an hour and a half. I told him I love the project. But I just, for me, as the treasurer for the DDA, as the treasurer of the township, I can't see giving away $1.5 million. That's just my thought, and I mean, I have tons of notes. I mean, and I can't. I don't like that you tell us that property's been like passed over or not. I've never had the property. I have not ever had that property owner come in and complain that he can't sell his property. We're not in that real estate business, but I've never had that here either. So you're telling us that he can't sell the property to someone else or something else or for something else. And actually, I actually asked you guys if that could be developed commercially without a cleanup, and I was told yes by 3 different people in your organization. So now you're telling me that it can't be. So I don't like that either, because that's a little misconception to me, or I'm misunderstanding it. But I'm happy to answer any questions on my end. But
I'm just trying to understand the 7-year. They're saying 7 years. You're saying 8 more years after it. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the math. So it will take us 7 years. We'll collect the taxes and give it back to them till it's $1.5 million. Okay. So now we're basically at zero. They've gotten no tax, just the base amount. So we've given away $1.5 million to get the value of that property back to the DDA. Will take 8 years, and it's right in there, even their notes. It will get, hang on. The value for the DDA right here equals, the new annual DDA taxes is $186,000 per year. The new value right here. So to, project highlights. Right there. So that's what that's just their project. Not the value of the DDA, just their complex is $186,000. So to get that $1.5 million, it's going to calculate that. Divide $1.5 million by 186. That's 8 years. So it'll take 8. So it's 15 years for them to get their $1.5 million back.
Do you get that?
No, well, I guess
We're
I'm
paying
trying
them $1.5 million the first 7.
I know, but if we don't, if this doesn't go ahead and nothing's developed, then we're still collecting $5,000 a year. Is that weird? Oh, it's the chief. The chief's beeping back there. Yeah, so you're collecting $5,000 a year during that entire time. So it's yeah.
Go ahead. Those are very good questions, but I'd like to give you the rest of the information so everybody understands all the numbers. First of all, the property currently is paying approximately $5,820 a year, total taxes, of which the DDA gets about $1,500. That's a contribution to the DDA. The other taxes pass through the taxing units. The school taxes do, ISD does, the library does. So about, call it $1,500, in that range, approximately, of the $5,000 goes to the DDA. At the end of the project, if it's done and paid off in 7 or 8 years, or a year higher or lower, it's all an estimate, the DDA share will go up from $1,500 to about $150,000. It will not cost the DDA a penny. They continue to get their $1,500 a year for those 7 or 8 years. They're not writing a check to anybody. They're deferring the increase from what's been $1,500 for a number of years to 150,000. They're deferring that 100 times multiple of what they're getting now for 8 years. That's their sacrifice, if you look at the DDA itself. The school district is made whole because school districts are basically in formula these days. It really doesn't matter what they collect in the 18 mills because they're in formula. So the school district gets more students, which means they get more state aid. So they're a winner, not a loser, when a project goes forward, regardless of the capture. School districts are basically agnostic about tax capture these days unless they have a supplemental hold harmless millage. And they continue to get the debt millages. They are not captured by brownfield plan. So the debt millages of the school district start out at about $50,000, $70,000, $90,000 a year new money each year to the school district. So there aren't losers. There are winners and deferred winners with a brownfield plan. Now, I don't quite understand, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, I'm trying to be respectful, but I don't think the DDA has to pay anything back after 7 years. The real question is, how long does it take for the DDA to capture as much as they deferred? So in that table, a little hard to read, over the course of the 8 years, the DDA's capture would have been $825,000 had the project gone forward without a brownfield plan. So they deferred that amount of money. They're not going to get it. They'll start getting their payoff, so to speak, in about year 8 or year 9 under the brownfield plan. Now, there's certainly a philosophical issue that I respect and understand as to, it's a dirty piece of property, why should the public help pay for the cost to level the playing field? And you're not the only community that's raised that question. Hundreds have gone forward and decided it's in the public good to have abandoned properties go back under the tax roll, and it's better to not wait another 1 year or 5 years or 8 years for that to happen.
Can I ask a question? How do you think this property is abandoned?
It's not.
Right, okay, so.
Well, when was it, it's not operating, it's not.
Taxes are paid in full, and it's not abandoned, so.
I want to make a distinction. It's not abandoned. The opportunity here is we are ready to turn a shovel and get started with a project that will bring 94 brand-new units. If this is similar to the 7 others that we are currently doing, it's not going to be a 7 or an 8 year brownfield. You will be raising taxes and we will be raising prices. The question before the board is we don't believe the economics are there to go forward without some assistance on a problem that this property has. We're willing to work with this board on the amount of the brownfield, the character of the reimbursements, whether there's some reimbursements during the brownfield that can go to the DDA. We are willing to do whatever it is that gets it so it's not just take it or leave it, Robertson. We can't help you with a problem that's been there for years. So I don't want to be argumentative, and I'm very sensitive to exactly what you're saying, but we don't have any, other than the big recession, we have been wildly successful bringing this type of product to these type of communities. In Ferndale, we're going to be finishing 2 or 3 years early because the taxing authority realized the increase in the property values of these new homeowners, and we're able to raise the value. So it's not $1.5 million, it's whatever it costs us to clean it up. If it's $50, that's what we are going to put the brownfield in, $50. If it's $500,000, that's what it's going to be. It's not $1.5 million. We are guessing the worst case scenario was if we took that whole trapezoid or whatever, what is it? Polygon, thank you. A little microphone fright here. If we took that whole polygon and we dug it down all the way to the water table, which is 13, 14 feet?
Between 10 and 12 feet.
And took all that soil. So that's not going to happen. But that is the estimate. So nobody's writing checks for $1.5 million. Robertson's fronting whatever money is necessary and asking if we can have an economic understanding where there's no interest paid to Robertson, there's no additional profit paid to Robertson. We're asking for some help on a toxic site. So I'm sorry, Richard, but it's not abandoning. You're right. I can't tell you. Look, somebody could come in tomorrow and say they're going to do it. I've only been doing this 35 years, so I don't think so. But that's just a developer talking to a board, but I think this is a unique opportunity and we're ready to go. So that's our pitch.
I have a question. So the brownfield is different than the DDA capture. You mentioned something about that we have $6 million still to be able to capture toward that 17. This does not factor into it?
This is all additive.
Well, it's
So what I guess I want to know
Yeah.
is, so if this 1.5 in no way factors into that 17, and
No.
but,
that's what the county gives to us.
but I guess I want to understand if you're capturing the increment beyond the baseline, which is where you're at with this.
Yes.
And it's for brownfield. Does it hit against our cap with the county for the DDA for our that $17 million capture?
No.
So it's not like that's going to come out of the 6 million. We're still going to get the $6 million to pay off the debt.
Yes.
Because I needed to be clear on that.
Yes.
Also, you mentioned something, is it like a pass-through where you negotiate to where instead of 100% capture during that 7-year period, perhaps it's a 10-year period and you capture 75% or you capture 80%. Whatever the formula is to get to the point where it's paid off, but allow the DDA to get, I don't want to say relief, but to
incremental
realize
money,
some
yes.
of that increase during that time. So that's not been proposed, but that's an option.
I'm
That's the same.
verbally telling you, we would love to have the opportunity to discuss those intricate
Right.
details with
I'm just saying
them.
that's not in this.
No, and I didn't want to come up here and give you 50, here, look, here's a deck of cards, what do you want? These things can be structured any way two intelligent parties want to sit down and say, okay, what makes sense for the community and what makes sense to move this project forward this year, which is what we're trying to do.
So the benefit is that you're going to, everyone here voted for that project, right? I mean, it was a 7-0 vote, and everyone on the planning commission voted for that project, and it meets the master plan, and it's something that the community wants. So if this allows us to clean up a site, it allows us to make an improvement that may not be made without this cleanup.
That's our belief, that it's very challenged without some help.
Sure. And, I mean, I can't disagree.
Yeah.
You're the only one to bring a plan forward in the time that I'm aware, which doesn't mean that you would be the only one over the next few years.
yeah. Who knows,
It's impossible
right.
to know, right. But, I mean, it's just that lost opportunity if we don't move ahead with something, understanding that it's costly, but it's a responsible thing to do.
It's a lost opportunity now. It's ready to, the beauty of this is it isn't, let's go through the approval process and see if Robertson's going to do it. And Robertson's not saying, I can't put up the 7.1 million. We have it, we're ready to go, we want to start, but I do need some help.
So
Yeah, sorry.
No, I just have a question. You said you're doing 7 of these.
Yes.
Why do you look for these if they're so incredibly, you just can't make money on them, so you need help from everybody? And, I mean, why do you look for them? Why?
We don't look for them.
I don't know of anyone else that has 7 going.
Well, so Ferndale had a RFP for 2 school sites, and they were both had contamination, so that was one. The city of Detroit, because it's a core city, you get a brownfield on every one of them, whether you ask for them or not. So they're not, those 7 communities aren't referencing all brownfields. The 7 communities are 7 townhouse developments that we have.
Well, the way you
But they're not,
phrased it, it was brownfields.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, we don't have 7 townhouse brownfields. We have 7 of those townhouse developments going in Royal Oak and Wixom and downtown Detroit and Troy. So we have a number of those. The point in saying that is I don't think, if they're doing this for 35 years, I know we have a success if we can if we don't have to bend the economics so they have to sell it, in the high 300,000s to start. We won't get off the launch pad, which is why I'm asking so.
Well, a lot of this site, I mean, we're talking, it's probably the most dense site that we'll have in the township. I mean,
Yes.
you're literally getting 94 single-family homes on 6.5 acres.
Yes, sir.
So that seems like a profit margin to me. I mean, I don't know what you paid for the property, but I would sure hope that whoever sold it to you, knowing that there was contamination, would have given you a pretty stark deal on it. I'm asking. I guess where I'm really a little bit taken back is because when you come in, you're ready to deal now, but when you came in, it's $1.5 million or I walk, because that was the last meeting that I sat through with Tim, he said, you know, I don't want to say this the way it is, but if you're not going to do the brownfield, we're walking. And he said, that's not an ultimatum. And I asked him to his face. I said, well, this sure sounds like an ultimatum.
Sounds like one to me.
Yes, and you come in here and you put that ultimatum on us, and you don't even help. You're just saying it's on you, the taxpayers of Lyon, to give us the most dense piece of property on 6.5 acres with 94 single-family homes. And by the way, you're going to help us with $1.5 million. It could be less, but there was no dealing about it. It was $1.5 million or we walk. And I guess that comes across a little strong to me.
And I, whether you like it or not, that's why I'm here tonight. So
I'm just saying, it comes across a little strong to me when that's the ultimatum.
And I'm not happy about that, and that's why I'm here, because I am the president of the company, and it is my decision, and the buck stops with me. I'm an owner, and I'm the president, and Tim generally does these things, and I back Tim and I support Tim. He is a good representative and employee of Robertson, and to the degree he offended the board and you personally, I have to apologize as the owner of Robertson Brothers and say I'm here because I believe in this project, but I also know my numbers after 30 years, and I know I'm asking, I'm not telling you, and I don't, we will have to reconsider. If you say hard no, then we have to think if it makes sense. How much risk do we want to take? And that's on us. And I'm not going to give you an ultimatum. You're Lyon Township. You're not even South Lyon. So it was a joke. It was a joke. It's your decision. We thought we had some interest on the part of the DDA, but it's not the DDA's decision. It's your decision. You're the purse strings of the community. So we're here. I'm here in a much more humble fashion to say, is there some way to work this out which can be not all or nothing?
Well, Jim, open up. I said enough.
No, I've asked a bunch of questions, but
John,
let me ask one more.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
Sorry,
John said he hasn't seen, I don't know that the whole world necessarily needs to know the financial details of this, but I think if you're meeting with the staff, at least the supervisor and the treasurer, I would like you to talk to them about it. I would like you to show them your performance. I would like you to prove to them that this project is dependent on this and to what extent.
Yes,
because,
we'd be happy to.
I'm until they're shown that, I don't need to see it. If they understand it and they can tell me that they understand it, I'm satisfied with it. I don't think it's appropriate to bring it here and put it on YouTube for the whole world to see. That wouldn't be fair to you. But someone here needs to see these numbers to make sure that this dog hunts. And I think that to me, that has to happen before I would vote to move ahead. And I think there needs to be more consideration for a program that has a different approach to it, either some shared cost, and maybe we put a different cap on this. So you're saying this is your cost.
No, I'm saying those are guesstimates. There's only way we can do this. Nobody can tell us how deep that contamination is, so you have to guess. And I hate saying I'm guessing, but
when we find partners in the development side, they don't ever say, well, whatever it is, it'll just be, which is what you're asking us, up to what you believe is 1.5. And I'm not being combative. I'm just saying this is reality. You sat through a project that said, we'll pay a third of it up to $250,000 for road construction, Milford Road. Why can't we come up with something like that that puts a cap on this, that protects us to the extent that we're able to absorb this kind of a diversion of funds temporarily from the DDA?
We'd welcome that opportunity, and you have to start somewhere. So I apologize, but you can't say, well, I'll do anything you want me to do and not give you a program. So by definition, you have to say, this is what it could be as bad as, and here's how that as bad as would work out, and here's the numbers for as bad as it could be. And I've heard loud and clear that.
And I guess I'm asking for those conversations to happen with the same group that had a take it or leave it maybe type of.
No, that was the DDA board. They did the presentation to the DDA board.
Okay,
that was not anybody in secret. That was a DDA.
Oh no, I had a conversation with Tim, and I got exactly that.
And I don't want to dig into all that.
I don't think that's appropriate right now. But things were said that weren't right, and it's just.
I will say the one thing I will say is. It comes to a point where you say you should do it, and And I'll say, well, I think there's too much risk to do that. And so then there's always this, well, you should go buy that business for $10 and you'll make money on it. And I say, well, I have to buy that business for something less or I won't. So, I can show you numbers till, Richard can show us numbers till the numbers run out of numbers. But at some point, you have to trust that the developer who's been doing it for 75 years has some expertise in this.
I'm not saying you don't, and I understand the point you're making.
Okay.
But to not have numbers to back up.
Oh, we'll back every bit of
numbers
it.
to back up this. I would never vote to say you can have $1.5 million of capture over the next 7 years without some financial justification, and you're going to have to give that to the treasurer or to the supervisor or to some committee of folks here.
She's too tough. Who else could we have?
Well, that's
Can I get anybody else to join us, please?
Can I say that?
That's exactly why.
I
We all
know.
participate in the budgeting, but we don't all participate in the daily accounting. So I don't know, I can't tell you down to the dollar what all the accounts, what the bottom lines are, but I do know what the budget looks like. And so that's why I think that some of that information needs to be provided. And to me, I think a different approach that softens the blow to the DDA over this period of time, maybe extends the period of time, but reduces the percentage of capture from 100% to something less than that. So
We'd welcome those discussions.
that seems to be the direction I would maybe suggest you go.
Okay.
But I'll now stop talking.
There was only one question buried in there, so.
Well, it was a multi-parter.
Well, but when you said you had one question, you stayed true to that.
You knew that wasn't, yeah.
I was watching. So, John, you had mentioned that this is 6.5 acres, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Little over.
and just to clarify, how many acres is contaminated? It's only within that multi-sided. Got it. Yes. Is that like 2? Okay.
Close 1.5 or so.
Okay. Well, I didn't know
13.
2 or 3 because a couple or a few. Just
Yeah.
checking.
13 feet down.
Yes. So that's so maybe about 2 acres. So that gives you 4 acres, or 3.5 perhaps, that would be buildable, which would not require disturbing that. Is that accurate?
The way VOCs work, the way Eagle looks at volatile organic compounds, in particular tetrachloroethylene and its carcinogen, is you're required to have a distance away from the nearest clean location. So we would have to stand off that, depending on whether it's upgrading or downgrading, anywhere from 30 to 60 feet. So we'd be pushing the boundary on the east side to the property line, on the west side to within probably halfway to the property line, and it would move north and south as well. Our groundwater flow direction is to the northwest, away from Grand River Avenue.
And our utilities go south, so we have to go through it to put utilities in.
I'm not asking specifically for your approved project. I'm just asking as far as how many acres are on that site that you could that a person could put something on it. It's not all contaminated, so that's what I'm asking.
So could you put something on the south end, the south acre, and something on the north acre? Probably.
Okay. And then my other question that I asked Brian, but I just wanted to clarify too, can you put, or is a parking lot allowed to, not the entire site, but would you be allowed to put a parking lot on the site that would not have to clean it up? What other options do you have to put on that site that would not require any cleanup?
Anything done here has to consider the indoor air pathway. So any structure that'll include occupancy by humans would have to include consideration of the indoor air pathway.
So if you had a site that, or if you had a project, or if a company had a project that had a human-occupied building on the south side, but a parking lot was on top of the contamination, are you allowed to put a parking lot on top of the contamination?
The parking lot actually makes it worse, not better, because it captures it and you don't get volatilization straight up. It would trap it and you could end up accumulation.
Okay.
And then the other piece of that, if you have storm sewers, the utility trenches can become corridors to transport the contamination toward a structure.
All right, so that clears up my questions. I would just continue to defer to not only the 3 full-time officials, because they're here every day and meeting and, with different entities, with, with the DDA, with the county, but I'm going to just continue to listen to our financial expert that's looking out for the township, and that would be Patty. Sorry, John and Michelle.
It's Patty.
So yes, I would agree that Patty should probably be the one meeting with you guys to manage some kind of financial discussions. But I am not all that sold on this plan that you have presented to us today. The request that you are, yes.
The request or the request to amend the request?
I think she's asking.
I mean, we are willing to amend the request and work with you if there's, tonight, we're not going to...
I'm not willing to give up the money, let's put it that way. So I'm willing to have, if there's further discussions, but what you're asking for tonight is, I'm not really supportive of it.
Can I clarify one more time? Try one more. We're fully aware that the $1.5 million, 100% reimbursement to Robertson Brothers for spending whatever money it is not moving forward. We're asking the board, can we continue to meet and try and discuss something that would be workable for both, as opposed to just no?
I would be supportive of you talking to Patty.
Okay.
I mean,
maybe John, can you come with me, please? Come on, help me out.
Okay. So just to clarify on that point kind of again, the brownfield legislation, the way it is, gives us the flexibility where we could say, for example, like Sean was saying, 80% capture rate up to a hard cap on funds, or maybe we say, you can capture a certain percentage of what your actual remediation costs are. Those kinds of things are all possible.
Yes.
Under the Brownfield Law, Act 381, you can negotiate formulas, you can negotiate caps, as long as they're equally applied to all the taxing units.
Okay.
It can be any deal that you want to make. And in this case, the DDA needs to go along because it affects their capture. And the county would be looking for what's called an interlocal agreement between the DDA and the county. But basically, if it turns out to be X percent and it's equal to everybody, the schools, everybody else,
right,
then that's legal.
Okay, thank you.
And a cap is legal as well.
All right. So then I guess now I'm going to pivot back to some more environmental questions, I guess. Probably not fair to make you spit out a number for this, but do you have a general sense of, since you said yes, it's contaminated still beyond the levels for a commercial use, but obviously the standard is higher, does that affect the remediation cost? So if we had a different user come into this site and say we want to put an office building here or something, how much less, if any less,
Yeah,
are we talking?
We haven't done a study to support a calculation to that. What I can tell you, and if you look at these numbers, you'll see we're anywhere at, I think our highest concentration is in the order of 1,500. I made a really big one that I could see, excuse me.
1350.
Is it 1350?
Yeah.
Thank you. So the highest concentration we have here is 1,350 micrograms per kilogram, which is several orders of magnitude greater than 74.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about obviously a necessary cleanup there. We've got a 280, we've got an 810, we've got 160. So we have several and 120, several that are at least one order of magnitude greater, and that covers 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 5 locations. I think the idea that we could do a lesser cleanup, in reality, this contamination is probably variable within this release area. There's going to be higher concentrations, they'll be lower. One of the reasons I like doing the full cleanup, and I typically advocate this for residential sites, is we don't know if there's a big kahuna out there or not. There could be a couple buried drums or something. there could be something like that there. And if it is, the way to find it is to open this up and take it out. But yeah, there's many ways to skin a cat.
Okay.
Clean up the site.
So, right.
Clean up a site.
Yes, yes.
There's always many ways.
Leave the cat out.
Yes.
The cat.
Okay. So the cost could change, but no good way to say how much.
Not
You'd
with
still,
the data we have
you would
today.
still have likely significant costs because I
It
assume
would still
you're-
be significant, that's correct.
A lot of this is, I'm assuming, fixed costs, and then you've got a variable portion just based on how much soil you're removing.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Similar to Lisa's question about the parking lot, thinking about other possible site configurations, would you be allowed to put move the detention basin to that location? I would think that would be bad, but.
Yeah, we want to keep the detention basin away from this
Right, okay,
location.
because we're trying to, yeah, okay, just.
We hope to
clarify.
get all the groundwater contamination out with this soil removal.
Right.
And we hope
Okay.
to test to demonstrate that.
Okay.
But that's one of the question marks and one of the risks the developer is taking, that we get into this, we have an open excavation with water in it, and we conclude it's not affordable to clean up all the water to non-detect.
Actually, sorry, since you brought that up, yeah, what happens if you're going through this and you hit a point where, are we still then sitting on a site that you're going to keep collecting even though it's never been fully remediated?
Well, that's really a really good point, because I think this is a very important segue. There is no 1.5 million. It does not exist and will not exist until the property's cleaned up and fully developed and tax revenues being generated. So there's no money being given away by anybody. The money is not here, and it won't be here unless the development is put here.
Right.
I mean, we will write checks to the degree we have to clean the site up. That will happen.
But back to your point, restate the question, because I want to make sure to get it right.
Sorry, that was one that I just kind of blurted out and didn't write
Okay.
down. I think I was getting at, what's
I don't like this question.
If
the worst happens.
you start working on the project, it goes really
if-
bad, and say it's a really high number, you're not comfortable bearing that cost. Whatever happens, we don't get to the point where the site gets fully cleaned up. Does the brownfield actually still exist, or does the brownfield only come into existence once the cleanup is said, yep, we're good, or are we going to be stuck with a parcel where we're capturing for 30 years?
The site meets the definition of a brownfield right now. Okay, so it is a brownfield. Whether it's accepted for brownfield funding or not is a decision of this body. But it is a brownfield right now, and it will be until it's remediated to below residential standards.
So his answer is no, we don't collect money if it doesn't get cleaned.
Okay.
They won't close
Right.
the
Okay.
site.
So
and we
so
won't-
the county brownfield authority will never give you your money back until the site is
We will have spent the
cleaned.
money and it never comes back.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Thank you. Yes.
We're out-
I think you
we're out
you
the
figured out
whatever
what I
it
was
is.
asking when I didn't know.
That's all right. Nobody's crying for the developer.
Yeah.
I get it. But that is the reality. We have to get it closed.
Okay. Then we're talking about the fact that our concern seems to be focused around the DDA losing their money, and I know you guys have presented to the DDA, and you indicated that they were generally favorable of the project. I guess not having been at that meeting, how does the DDA feel about losing out on that money? Because, like you said, it's not really us that are losing on it directly in our general fund for the most part.
I was not at the DDA meeting. I don't want to speak for the DDA. We didn't take I don't even think there was a straw vote. Mr. Dolan, you were at the DDA meeting. We know 2 or 3 people. Adorno came up to me and said, he said to me personally, I'm in support of the project. I think Mr. Zerleg may indicate he's in support of it, but those are only 2 individuals. I don't want to speak for anything with the DDA.
Okay, I guess that would be one thing that I would look for is some sort of, I guess maybe some sort of statement from the DDA, whether they're supportive of this or not, before we decide for sure.
I met with the executive committee, and I think they had no idea their finances. When I explained their finances, I think they had a different attitude, maybe.
Well,
I know
think-
Mark was there, but I think Mark really can't say anything, because I think
I think part of the problem is what comes first, the chicken or the egg. I mean, if until you decide you want to do this, I mean, you don't want the DDA weighing in and saying, we want you to do this if you don't want to do it.
Fair. I guess I'm in a position where I guess I generally am looking at this saying, well, right now we're not making basically anything. If we do this, we will be making things in the future. To me, that kind of makes sense to move forward. I view this a little more favorably than I view some of the other types of tax abatements we've done, because we're getting an environmental benefit out of this too. But before I would firmly say that, I guess when we got to that stage, I would want, maybe it comes after we possibly come to a rough agreement on what the terms would be, but at some point before we pull the final trigger, I would want a resolution from the DDA saying, yeah, we're good with this. Even though I know it's not legally their decision. Is that?
If I might, we need an affirmative vote from the DDA for this to work.
Correct.
We do actually.
Yeah, two votes. You need to defer to the county, and the DDA agrees to enter into the interlocal agreement with the county. So it really takes two affirmative votes.
Okay.
They can be on the same night.
Because they're the ones being captured, and then is that also required of the other captured entities?
Right. In other words, all you're really doing is deferring to the county, saying, county, you've got our permission to do what you want to do. As a practical matter, the county doesn't do that unless you know what they're going to do. That's why they've already reviewed the plan and the like for what would be at least at a staff level technically acceptable. Their board has not considered it yet. Okay, let me be real clear. It's not gone to the Oakland County Brownfield Authority's board. But they cannot do anything that captures the DDA money without the DDA agreeing to have their capture go into the plan. So however chicken and egg you work at, one can be conditioned on the other, but certainly you all should be talking, and Mr. Dolan, of course, is at both meetings. So I hear the need for more discussions, right? And I think all we're asking for tonight is if there's a willingness to hear some modifications along the lines of what Mr. O'Neill mentioned or others, then we can sit down with your team and say, okay, is this going to make it or that going to make it? Does it satisfy the treasurer's concerns? Because there are policy concerns here. There are financial statements concerns you have about the DDA, which we were not privy to, but I understand that. But I think I'd like to sit down in a quiet environment and say, okay, let me understand this, and let's see if we can tweak things to satisfy your needs and to get the capture of the DDA up from 1,500 to 150,000, while some of you are still on the township board, because you're probably not term limited. So some of you will be here 8 years from now, and you'll remember that the 150,000 will start to flow, and maybe in 6 years if it turns out to be only $1.2 million or so. So that's our goal. And if you say go and come back in a few weeks or whatever and see if you can work out something, I'll at least be told it was nice to be here tonight by Mr. Clark, and I'm not going to get kicked and told to sit down fast.
Can I ask one question? And I know you probably will not like the question, but I have to know.
See, he's sitting down now.
I have to. So you being a developer, which you are a good one, and I know you are a good one. Believe me, I know that. If you walked on a prime piece of property, okay, just a prime piece of property that had a 94-unit, 6.5 acres approved site plan through 2 boards with no brownfield, what would you pay for that property? What do you think you'd pay for that 6.5 acres? I'm just asking, because I'd like to know what you think that it would cost you to buy it when it was just a green piece, build it, and what you actually paid for it. I mean, that I'd kind of like to know them numbers. I'd like to know what, to me, a piece of property, a 6.5 acre piece of property, and I'm not being mean, I'm just asking questions. A 6.5 acre piece of property on a prime location with 94 single-family homes already approved on it through 2 boards has got to be worth a lot of money. And I don't know what you paid for it.
I'm happy to share what we paid, and I'm happy to share with you the deed for the property we just bought in Brighton a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago, and it's within $1,000 a unit of what we paid here. Brighton didn't happen to have any contamination, but I'm happy to share with you every.
No, I'm just asking that question. You know why? I just want to know.
But I can't answer it unless you give me every detail. Where's it located, and what's the? I mean, if it's in downtown Birmingham,
it's located right there. The one you're looking at,
Well, in
that
this-
is green without...
In this case, we paid
contamination.
$900,000.
Okay, so you paid 900, but I'm asking you, what do you think that would cost you if it didn't have contamination on it? If it was completely green and you could walk in and you could build 94 single-family homes, would that piece be worth
That's what we...
$900,000?
No, it would, yeah, that's what we paid in Brighton for a piece that's 84 units. And it's walking distance to downtown, and they have a very attractive downtown. Now, I know it's...
So you're saying you're paying full price for a contaminated piece of property?
I don't, no, I don't think we're paying full price. That's what he was selling it for, and that's what we paid. And
I'm
then
not trying to make you mad. I'm
Yeah.
just asking
No, you're
questions
not.
and
You're
trying to
not. I'm
figure
just...
out- You see what I'm saying? You know what you understand what I'm asking. I just want to know...
I guess the only thing I can say to you is, we have to go and we have to go get bank financing, and we have to line up $7 million to start the engine on this, to open for sales. And those are risks. And then we have, we'll agree to whatever cap it is if we can get to a cap, and we can agree to a cost sharing if we can agree to it. And everything that's on our shoulders over and above that. And so, I think we've paid more than a fair price for this piece of property, given the problems it has. And I think cleaning up environmental sites in a downtown is actually not a bad thing. And if you can get
I
a
didn't say it
developer...
was a bad
No,
thing.
no, I know. But if you can get a developer to pay for it and take all the risk...
Well, that's what we're trying.
Yes. And I'm asking for some help.
No,
It's
I
Be Nice to
know
Developers
Chris
Month.
hasn't talked yet, and I'd like to give him the opportunity. And Michelle, I don't know if you'd like to talk, but my opinion is, and if Patty agrees, I think if the board would like us to do that, as Sean, I would do that. If you guys know about that, you would like us to do that. But I would like to hear Chris. Chris hasn't talked, and I know he needs
Sure.
to.
Well, when I looked at this coming in, I was happy to see that this is all getting trucked off and cleaned up, and the environmental stuff that you've put on there is it's very good. The whole on-site lab and everything that was very well explained, and this is a good thing to get cleaned up. And in all honesty, I thought this was I was kind of for it until I really learned tonight a little bit more about the finances from Patty. So I don't. Whatever goes here, I think the cleanup absolutely has to happen. I don't want to pave over it or do unoccupied areas on it, because it's got to go. So if something can happen between the two, the full-time officials and you guys to set a cap and to make everybody happy, that's probably the way I would go.
Thank you.
Is everybody in agreement? Are we good? Okay, so that, we can make an appointment. Patty and I can sit down with Michelle, and we can just kind of hash out a few things, and if it looks like something that could pencil, we'll bring it back to the board and
Bring a better deal than what we talked about today.
see what we can.
I was just coming to see you.
Better deal, a lot better.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
your
it.
time. Thank you very much.
All right. Is everybody okay to finish up here? Okay, we're going to move on to the Huron Valley Trail Phase 2.
Okay, so Huron Valley Trail, Phase 2 resurfacing, the project has been out for bid, has been designed and publicly bid. This includes the segment of the trail from Milford Road towards the northeast to the township's north border, as well as a small segment west of Milford Road near the gas recovery site into the park. We publicly bid the project. We received 4 bids. The low bid, the original low bid, was submitted by Birmingham Seal Coat. They did contact us the following day that they had made an error and they withdrew their bid, so their bid is not included in the bid tab.
Yikes.
So therefore, the new low bidder was submitted by ASI in the amount of $420,440.50. And the next lowest bid was submitted by Gibraltar Construction Company. We did check the references for ASI and found that all of them were acceptable. Therefore, we would recommend awarding the contract to ASI in the amount of $420,440.50. And we recommend allocating 15% contingency on the project for a total budget of $483,000. 50657. This also is a segment of the trail that received a $75,000 maintenance grant from the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation, Community Foundation, the Ralph C. Wilson grant, and that would be applied to this project.
Okay, well, this falls, I think we budgeted 500, I think.
I don't remember.
Didn't we?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah, I think we do 500 every year.
And,
So
and I
this
guess
is
with
good.
the oil prices climbing, it's, I think Johnny mentioned several times tonight, probably should lock these in.
Yes.
It's time to do it now or never.
I agree.
So,
People
motion
love
would be?
the trail.
I always want
I'll
to
make
get
a
that done.
motion to approve the contract with Asphalt Specialist, Inc. in the amount of $420,440.50.
Support.
Can we
Do we wanna
can we
add
amend it?
contingency?
Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't see the contingency. I read the, what's the contingency? 424?
483,506.
Where is that?
The 15% contingency.
483, 506,
Oh, I didn't see that on mine. Yep, 483,506.57, sorry.
Support it?
Yes, what? We're going to have to quit giving you the budgets here, I can see that. Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I almost forgot how to do that. It's been so long. All right, we're going to move on to amend the Code of Ordinances for non-conforming uses and structures.
Sure.
Brian?
So administratively, or at the staff level, we have uncovered a portion of the ordinance that simply is not practical for us to maintain any longer, and so the ordinance should be updated. Right now, it gives Dave the authority or the obligation to document every single nonconformity in the township.
Wow, Dave.
It's not.
Really busy.
Yeah, you're going to have about 10 days to make that happen. It's just not practical in practice. So what we do from an administration standpoint is document those as we go and as they come up. But certainly the ordinance doesn't need to obligate the building official to do that. So we've made changes to the ordinance, proposed changes to the ordinance to amend that. We've also, while we were in the nonconformity ordinance, we've made several other changes, removing specific times for a period of non-use. Again, because we're not documenting every nonconformity, it's not possible to determine how long they've been there. We've done some general cleanup and updates that align us with state acts. And then the other piece to it is we've assigned the ability to the township planner to allow combination of non-conforming lots. Right now that authority is with the township board. So if somebody wanted to combine two adjacent parcels that were, say, too small for the ordinance, their request would technically have to come to the township board to get approved. Again, just not practical. We, in concert with Leslie's team, are reviewing all of the land divisions and lot combinations. We think this can be done administratively, and in practice, we're reviewing these same types of requests administratively today. So that's a brief summary of the changes that we're proposing. The Planning Commission held their public hearing in February and recommended the changes to the Township Board.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Anybody have any questions for Brian about this amendment?
I think Dave should do them. No, I'm just kidding. Just teasing.
I'll make a motion that we move ordinance 07-22, which includes text amendment AP 22-01 to second reading.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, let's move on to the resolution for the two new election precincts. That's you, Michelle.
That's me. Yay. Sean and Chris Enlow and I and April met on Friday, and they approved our map that I put into the packet. So we are going from, we're going from 9 precincts to 11, and our big changes were our District 49, District 21, and District 23. That's really split up our township, and a few of the precincts had to be adjusted too. So not only are we growing and we're getting really too big for our 2,999 allotment in some of these precincts, but we also had some districts we had to work with. So everybody looked at them and agreed. We ended up with two new voting locations, which there will be 2 precincts at Kent Lake Elementary School, and then Crossroads Church was generous enough to let us come in and rent their space for the elections. So it's going to be really nice. It's a nice
It's really
space.
nice. That eliminates the need for Fire Station 1.
Yes, which does
That
not
is-
have the right parking.
Yes.
So we unfortunately had to move them, and I know our little election group might be sad, but I'm moving you.
No, I think that
So,
moving
yeah.
that parking was always
It's really challenging and hard for people coming in and out of the station there, and then the trucks being pulled out, so.
Yeah, it just seems
Yeah.
unsafe.
It was just too tight there. Yep, it was.
Job.
We tried, and we appreciate Chief for giving us the go-ahead to use it, but we knew we had to get out of there and move.
This actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Looks like a
I'm
good-
not really happy that I have to now go to a new precinct because I
sorry.
got in the habit of, I knew that I just had to go to the left.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
walk to mine.
Well,
Chris and I are happy we're getting rid
Okay,
of
as long as you make me on the left.
Michelle, I
All
don't
right,
know-
somebody like to make a motion
Yeah,
on this
Michelle,
resolution?
I just wanted to point out in the first whereas,
Yep.
in the second to last line, that
Yep.
U.S. Congress period just still needs to be
Oh, it's still there, yep, that's,
comma.
okay, sorry, that was
So,
Carolyn. That was
uh,
Carolyn and I trying to get this figured out. Okay.
With that amendment, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-08.
Support.
Okay, and then, sorry, just adding on to that, one more typographical thing. The list of addresses there
Yeah.
has ands on 2 of the lines, but not all
Oh,
of them, so
you know-
either
Yes, you
delete
know-
the ends or add it to all of them.
No, what had happened was we had the 2 of them, whereas with the 2 new precincts, and then we just decided it was getting too much, so we put them there instead. So, yep, we'll take care of that.
Okay, we all good?
Fire station, yep.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any more discussions? That concludes our meeting.
No, John, I just think that with these new redistrictings, we will have 3 state representatives, so.
It's bizarre. You didn't ask for it.
There's more
but
people
we
to
got it.
listen to.
So we'll have to be bending 3 different ears.
All right, seeing that we're done, concluded our meeting, I consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.